What's up, good people of Interweblandia? That's what you're called, right? That's the name of the place. So I'm gonna do something different where I have my screen split up here. Just gotta, oh, I gotta make sure that's connected. And there, I got my chat window here. I just click right on it, and I've been watching this great YouTube series. I'll probably just play all their videos because they're just great, talking about how some D&D stories and experiences that really, I think, shape gaming in general, like concepts that are lost on a lot of these AAA gamers, game companies. So anyway, we'll start with this, see how this goes.
Once upon a time, in the magical kingdom of Avalon, there were angels and humans all dancing around and laughing, and everything was great. One day, God decided to show up and check in on things.
How are we all doing down there?
Everything is fine, my lord.
Oh, how wonderful. You
I should change the title, actually.
Ones.
We're a little confused, though. Those new creations of your...
Give me 1 second. I'm gonna do building stuff. I'm gonna be watching streams like this. Can't really do audio while messing around like that. Alright, title's updated.
Lord, the manticores? They're a little scary. People are staying away from them.
Oh, now, don't you worry. They're perfectly harmless.
What about those stingers they have on their backs?
Those? Those are used for injecting life-saving medicines. I sent them here to be your doctors. They're here to save people, not hurt them. What other reason could they be for?
What about the,
Dragons?
Yes, Lord, them?
Don't be afraid of them. After all, they have those giant wings on their back to fan you guys and keep you shaded when it's hot.
And the fiery breath?
What if you wanted roasted marshmallows and the fire was too far away?
Roof 10
Thank you, Lord.
But remember, I put all of the evil in the world into a box and gave it to you guys. Make sure that it is never opened, or else there will be untold consequences.
Okay, thank you, Lord. Not sure why you did that.
Don't you worry. It's all part of the plan.
With Windows.
So, the angels and the humans went about playing and having fun until one day.
With Windows, with... Okay,
hey, you guys, I brought the pizza.
Windows 10, 12 extension. Okay.
So, fucked it all up. Now we live in a fallen world where there's evil, disease, gnomes, and death. Perhaps if 4 adventurers were called forth to rise up and reclaim the world, would they be able to fight against the darkness?
Oops, not
Probably not.
God. Actually, that might be an interesting topic.
Oh, man. Here at WebDM, it's a delicate balancing act between providing information and pissing people off. So today, we're going to talk game balance. There it is. Sometimes the muse descends. You ready? Hey there, gamers. I'm Pruitt, and this is Jim Davis. Today, we're going to talk about game balance on WebDM.
1_5.
All right, Jim. Oh, excuse me.
Goodness.
Game balance. Man.
The bugbear of DMs and forum theorists everywhere.
How important is it?
It is not that important.
Okay, that's where we start.
It is not that important, and I find...
Okay. Not gonna watch these guys. Sometimes I just really don't get it right. I'm sorry. Gonna skip that in general. This guy though. What else haven't I seen? I was in the middle of this.
Fuck. I remember when I first started GMing, the players' distaste for combat always confused me. I don't know if it was the same in other groups, but my players would try everything they could think of before wading into combat. The first go-to is always sneaking around, which would lead to perhaps a persuasion roll, an assassination, and then maybe flaying. I was okay with it. After all, I ran Call of Cthulhu, so it made sense for them not to get into a fight. But even when I ran Dungeons & Dragons, I saw the same thing. This pissed off a lot of GMs I knew. Particularly in Dungeons & Dragons, there's high-level magic that can just negate problems. And some GMs physically cannot run games at high levels because of it. If there's a Sorcerer's Tower and they have to grab the Sphere of Power from the top, the players are not going to wade through a litany of traps, but they could just teleport up there. So the GM has to say, oh no, there's an anti-teleport circle in the tower, which leads to the players just taking Spider Climb instead, which leads to the top being enchanted with a magical super slippery ooze that prevents Spider Climb, which leads to the players trying to fly up to the top, which leads to a lightning rod that strikes people who fly close, which leads to the players buying anti-lightning cloaks, which leads to there being another smaller anti-lightning cloak rod, which negates anti-lightning cloaks, at which point the players should just leave. I mean, that sorcerer clearly wants that stupid magical orb or whatever the party's after more than the party does. Let me tell you, it's just not worth it. It doesn't get any easier going in through the doors. As you can see, this is just an endless arms race where the players and the GM just keep building around each other. At some point, the GM gets pissed off and says, can't you guys just play like normal people? Why do you guys always have to circumvent the game? Unless you use a lava kraken. Have you ever heard players say, hey, remember that one time we defeated that lava kraken? No, that's because it doesn't happen. I think what GMs sometimes, and myself as well, don't understand about fights is that players hate them. Let me clarify. What I mean by this, technically, in most adventures and campaigns, encounters are just a roadblock that comes up between the players and some kind of a problem they're trying to solve. So if the mission is, kill the high priest of such and such clan, really, they don't want to fight hordes and hordes of bodyguards. They'd rather just fire a well-placed crossbow shot and be done with it. If they get the tar beaten out of them on the minions, they don't stand a prayer against the final big bad. So if they're getting into a fight, it means they botched the plan somewhere. Not only that, but the minions will often give the players next to nothing in terms of money or magic items. If the minions are dropping like 10 gold apiece, the enemy will probably drop 100 times as much. Maybe if they fight minions, they could get their hands on a fancy new loincloth. Oh boy. Originally, the GM would only give players XP for killing monsters, so that was the incentive to fight. But nowadays, most GMs I talk to give XP for plot developments or circumventing an encounter. But remember, adding a benefit to an alternate route is the same as adding a penalty somewhere else. Which means now there's even less reason for players to go out Old West style, high noon, and have a showdown in the middle of the dungeon. I'm not saying that GMs should revert back to the old style of XP. Actually, I use the new style as well. However, as a GM, you need to be aware of the unintended consequence of that rule change and take it into consideration when making your games. So, there's usually no reason for a player to get into a fight, both from an in-game and out-of-game perspective. In most games, you start out with the most resources you're going to have, and as the mission progresses, you slowly lose those resources overcoming obstacles.
1 times 1.5.
Player's
1
main
times
goal
3.
is just trying not to lose those resources before the final
4.5.
confrontation. I know this is going to sound weird, but you technically move farther and farther away from your goal the more fights you get into, because the best case for an encounter for the players, nothing happens. More than likely, you'll lose
Short,
spell
medium,
slots,
tall.
you'll lose potions, you'll lose hit points, etc.
Short,
Even if they are looking at it from a narrative standpoint, it
short.
still doesn't make any sense, because only boss monsters technically advance the plot. If players have to kill the evil dragon queen, up till then, usually nothing changes, narratively speaking. But once she's dead, that's when one of the characters turns evil, or they find a magic skull, which starts talking to the players in Abyssal, and so on. The only times I've seen people get into a fight without a cause is when they say, we are playing Dungeons and Dragons, and we should get into a fight because fighting is what we do in this game we are playing. Although, that reasoning feels kind of empty and breaks the immersion. As a GM, there are several ways to deal with this problem. Really, it depends on what kind of game you're running. If you're the kind of GM who wants to run a bunch of mega encounters, you have to work harder to make sure that the players fight. Either jumping the players with an encounter, which might make the players feel railroaded or like the fighting is empty and meaningless, or introduce a fight hook, like, this enemy will be a threat later on if you don't take care of it now, or by giving them more rewards, like XP, magic items, gold, such as, yeah, if you go to the end of that dungeon and kill the big bad, he'll give you magic staff, but if you go to the armory that's guarded by those death knights, you might be able to get some even cooler stuff. Even then, I still suspect most players would try and sneak around the knights to get the items and get out. The knights would have to be wearing some really nice swag for them to pick a fight. Another option is just to roll with it. If players want to circumvent a fight or encounter, let them. Treat the encounters as punishments and expect them to go through the whole thing with minimal fighting, or legging it the second the encounter goes south. But even then, this kind of approach doesn't work all the time and might leave the players to feeling like they didn't quote-unquote earn the ending. Or maybe I'm thinking about this all wrong. After all, Dungeons & Dragons is about heroes being heroic. Maybe some people would say fights don't need benefits. If anything, it might make the situation gritty because the players are going out, fighting, slaying monsters, and risking their own lives for others. If that's the case, then it needs to be made crystal clear to the players that these are evil monsters. They will continue to do evil unless you stop them. I hope that this video clears up some of the confusion between players and GMs that hangs around a lot in some of my games. And once again, don't think I'm bashing running encounters of combat. Really what I'm attacking is the senseless marathon combat grinds and GMs yelling at players for circumventing problems that, really, they have every reason to avoid. What's funny is that players probably want to play through an encounter, but if there aren't any incentives or purpose to it, it makes more sense to just go around it. Hi everyone, thanks for watching! Some of you guys probably saw the video time and thought, wow, this video's really long. How is Ben going to animate this whole thing? I'm not.
Oh yeah, that's right.
That's
why I didn't finish watching this one.
When I start playing a new tabletop role-playing game, it takes me a while to figure out what kind of personality my character is. I sort of have to feel the character out by playing them for a bit. With most PCs, it depends what kind of item they have in their hands. Are they holding stacks of dynamite? In which case, they are chaotic evil. Have you ever thrown dynamite? It's hilarious! Which brings us to a rather peculiar character from a Pokemon Tabletop United game. Actually, it's the same game from my Pokemon Gangsters video. Just a refresher on the plot, we were students at a school. Evil gangsters had captured legendary Pokemon, and were holding them against their will. Who would do that to Pokemon? While we were attending classes at the school, we would go out on missions, find the Pokemon, and take them back. The character I made for this was Trixie Starbright! Yay! Just your average high school girl trying to make friends and make sure that everyone has the do-dandliest of days! Ding! Oh my god, I can't believe that's the voice I went with. Do I really have to do it for the rest of the video? My character was very outgoing, and competing with another girl to be the school president. Yeah, everyone's excited to see what the new school year can bring. As long as we're all working together, I'm sure it'll all turn out great. It's like I can feel my insides slowly strangling themselves to death.
Alright, okay.
In order to be...
Yardu. Welcome, foolish mortals, to Yardu, my fun. Seriously.
Oh no, the dragon's destroying my home village! That's where I keep all of my stuff!
Hey, look at that! Seems like there's a clue there. Blue skidoo, we can too. Whee!
Do you play chess?
Well, yes, I happen to be a master of the chess-playing variety.
Hey, look at that castle over there, Mr. Knight. Why don't we go explore it? That sounds like fun, Mr. Bishop. Hey, maybe we can find Mrs.
This
Queen
guy's
into the
good.
tea party.
Well, we were looking for a new member of the party. What do you have to offer?
Dishes.
Dishes?
Dishes, a clever joke.
What sorcery do you practice?
I'm a wizard.
A plow wizard? What does a plow wizard do?
Let me know there's a trap there. Maybe it's a good trap. See? It's magical healing fire.
Why would they have a trap hiding magical healing fire?
Well,
You're back.
It's our magical healing fire. Why would we want other people to use it? Of course we keep it hidden.
Ow. Table? You've secretly been able to talk?
Well, yeah, I mean, hasn't been a secret exactly.
Why didn't you say anything?
Oh, why was that my job? Why didn't you try talking to me? Oh, I know. Maybe you didn't strike up a conversation with me because you didn't think a table had anything interesting to say. Is that right?
This is why no one wants to talk to you.
But no.
Ho ho! And with this next trick, I will remove the tip of my finger. Ho ho! There it is, back again. Promise me that your power will always be used as a force for good in this world. So, as you guys know, we still haven't decided on a team name, but what if we called the group the Skull Dogs?
Skull Dogs? Seriously? That makes it sound like we're an 80s street gang.
I kind of do.
I love it.
Oh, clever move there from Lemmy. It seems like by moving his pawn to the knight's tea party, that is really going to make his king awkward when he has to stay the night over at his castle, while his bishops are pinned down across the board, smelling lilacs in the field.
Since you're late to the game, we only have 2 seats at the table open still. You can take the armchair, however, I warn you, it's covered in broken glass, and there's a nest of vipers that have moved into it, and they sometimes like to take turns biting the butt of anyone who's sitting in it. So if you feel a sharp bite followed by agonizing pain, you know where it's from.
Where's the other open seat?
Oh, the other one's on the couch next to Ben.
Hello. Do you have any antivenom?
A full carton?
Armchair it is.
I really should get those vipers out of there sometime.
Thanks for watching. I'll see you guys next time. I've always had trouble running adventures in tabletop RPGs. Whenever I plan a big epic fantasy game, I give a set of quest lines which involves helping poor little Timmy find his red wagon, matching a dress that goes with the noble lady's hair, or
stopping Zelphanar, the God Eater, from consuming our world and ending all existence as we know it.
It's pretty obvious to figure out what one the players will take. Whatever one pays the most. But then again, why do you have to have multiple quests? I've actually had players get pissed off at me because they accidentally passed over content. Players don't know ahead of time that if they talk to the general, he's going to give them a boring fetch quest, or they talk to Mr. Wiggins about his missing apples, he's gonna be the guy that gives them the really cool mission where they end up fighting transdimensional devourers on the rings of Saturn. Even though I knew all those problems, I tried making what I thought was I called a true open-ended adventure. This time I was running Fantasy Age. They were hunters. Characters that killed monsters for bounty, glory, and magic items. This time the plot line was that the Sultan was offering a 50 million gold piece reward for slaying a kraken. So, they'll have to go out on different quests and hunts to get the experience, allies, and magical items they need to get the job done. So I just dropped them off in the world with a boat and said good luck to you guys, and set sail. This was my solution to the peril conundrum I had been having in my other games, where the players would only chase down the world-ending mission and ignore everything else. It was set up in such a way that all the minor quests would give them small benefits and feed into that one major overarching goal. That worked a bit better. It had its own problems and was dry at times, but it worked. Up until the 6th session happened, the players were sailing around the coast. I had them roll for random encounters. They rolled a 2 out of 100. 1 out of 100 would have them encounter the Kraken, but 2 was special. I describe how the sea is blanketed in a dense fog. Our storm mage goes to dispel the clouds and has to fight against it, because it is discovered that this isn't any normal fog. It's an enchanted fog, and is repelled backward to reveal a spire rising like a silver needle, glistening above the sea that was too oddly shaped for it to be natural. They dock at the cave port and climb to the top, where they found ancient crumbling ruins, the remains of a temple to the moon. Inside, they find a magical artifact which is generating the fog. When our dwarf walked into it, he was blasted backward by a magical force and thrown across the room. So of course he did it 5 more times because he thought it was funny. Dwarves. Above, on the roof of the temple, they find a strange set of magical glyphs. Now, originally what I'd planned was that this was going to be a thing where they come in, and they find this place, and then they leave, and then they're going to be totally okay with them not finding anything or getting any magical swag. Probably didn't think that one through. What I was trying to sell them was that this ocean was a real place, and that this structure was going to have significance later on in the campaign. But not right now. Not right now. I mean, they couldn't do anything right now, because I had set the DC so high to use this magical circle that in order to activate it, they needed, like, a
Critical success!
So, they find out that in order to use it, the thing only activates at certain times of the week, and ah, shucks, it seems like it's not that time yet. We'll wait. Well, then, so you guys wait. I was kind of hinting that maybe the players should be moving on, which they weren't having none of it. It's funny, I think the players were expecting to see something cool here because this place is hidden. If it's hidden, that means there's cool stuff here because no one goes to great lengths to hide something and that doesn't have anything cool there. And they seem dead set on not leaving this place empty-handed. One night later, at midnight, there's a glow at the circle, and moonlight rises up into the night sky and pierces the darkness. The youngest character runs up and vanishes in the light. The rogue and wizard are like, "We gotta go after them!" and jump inside, vanishing as well. The dwarf and ranger are the last ones left, and they see the light slowly fading. The dwarf is like, "Do we really gotta go after them? They'll probably be back. We just wait here and shove." The elf shoved him in and then jumped in herself. The light at the top of the temple dims until it fades away, leaving the spire in darkness. Somewhere else, the blinding light fades. The group is left standing in a similar circle. However, this one doesn't have the wear and tear of the other one.
Did we travel back in time? We traveled back in time, didn't we?
The group found themselves at the peak of a barren mountain range. Stretching out past the mountains was a flat expanse of black and white, pocketed by craters. Beyond that, on the horizon, were the spires of a strange city, glowing with light in the distance.
Wow, we must have traveled, like, really, really far back.
You guys did not travel back in time. Above your heads in the sky, you see a sphere of blue and green, and then the realization hits you. You did not travel back in time. You traveled to the moon. That temple back there, that was a temple to the moon. Like, to the moon. As in, it teleports you to the moon. I mean, you guys weren't supposed to actually use it. This place would just be referenced later on in the campaign, and then you guys would say like, "Oh hey, remember that one weird place we went to that one time and nothing happened? Remember?" "Yeah, I do."
Wait, why are we not dead yet?
The moon in my world has its own atmosphere and is breathable. It's like a separate plane of existence.
Cool. Can we use this magic circle to get back?
It's currently set up so that way you can get here, but you can't use it to get back. It seems like this end of the portal was closed off, but not the other one.
So, how do we get back? Ben?
Anyway, that's it for today's session. Hope you guys had fun. Man, I am really looking forward to the weekend. Got a lot of stuff planned. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you guys next time.
I don't know what all that stuff is there.
In Dungeons & Dragons games, the team ended up on the wrong side of a noble's wrath, and we were being cautious around the city in order to not get caught.
Alright, Algaros. We're gonna split up. I need you guys to stay out of trouble and not cause a scene.
Oh, I see what you're trying to tell me.
What?
You want me to stay out of trouble and not cause a scene.
No, don't do anything crazy.
Don't worry, I get it. Wink. Don't do anything crazy. I'm picking up what you are putting down.
Stop it with the air quotes.
Don't you worry. I totally understand what you're trying to tell me. We have no miscommunication whatsoever. Alright, that could have been handled better. Mistakes were made. Someone's plan didn't exactly work out, and she really dropped the ball here. Not gonna say who. Gotcha. We eventually escaped capture and were infiltrating a castle when our super stealthy rogue samurai ninja fell down the stairs, and at the bottom is a few guards. Because of course, that's how dice work. He decides, I play dead. What? I play dead and pretend like I died. Blah. And just as you'd expect, the guards fail at their perception check and think he broke his neck. So the rest of the group up at the top of the stairs just hear the guards go,
Yup, he's dead. Poor bastard. Looks like the stairs got him.
And we're all like, oh no, what a way to go. Killed by stairs.
He was kind of a jerk sometimes.
No one's talking to you, Flynn. Now we're just down to 3 party members.
Excuse me, 3 party members?
Aw, he's so cute with those people clothes he's wearing.
Is that channel I was posting in chat?
I'm not the guy who got his name by
Can you hear it okay? Like, is it watchable?
Generator for Pokemon. Alagaros.
Shut up, Flynn. Eventually, we managed to meet back up with our friend, track down the noble, and confront him in the throne room. Turns out he was hunting down Flynn, who got a death sentence on his head when he wrote a satirical article mocking the king.
The only thing I want is that bird and his head on a pike mounted above the wall.
Okay, here you go. Wait, we can't just... Look, we had this conversation earlier. If we had to sacrifice someone to save the others, it was gonna be Flynn.
Give me the bird.
I've got a bird right here for you.
Alright, I'm fine with killing him too.
Did I do this one?
But lo and behold, a dragon came in to save Flynn.
Don't worry. I will rescue your bird companion.
Oh no, you really don't have to. You shouldn't have. After the fight was over, we spoke with this strange dragon. This bizarre creature was not like a normal animal. Its body was a mixture of wood, brush, thorns, and vines, similar to a plant. Hi there. One question. What's your name?
I am a nameless one. I was birthed from the forest that died under the evil power that this lord wields. I do not have a name, but a purpose. And that purpose is vengeance.
Cool. Can I call you Falcor?
Sure, yeah.
So the group rides
roof awning, roof ends, roof extensions
out of the castle.
Do you have to do that?
Yes. Yes, I do, Falcor. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you guys next time.
I feel like this is something that's supposed to attach from here and go out. If I kept the attach point where it's gonna be weird.
Cheating is something that surprisingly a lot of GMs do in Dungeons & Dragons, which is weird because most people wouldn't tolerate this in other games like poker. Wow, look at that, another royal flush. That's like the 18th one in a row. What are the odds of that? Pretty good, right? And definitely not something that's out of the ordinary. Poker's a dumb game. But Ben, I hear you say, isn't that why a GM has a GM screen?
It is that.
I mean, after all, that's so that way you can fudge the dice rolls, isn't it?
Perfect.
Oh yes, I heard that. You didn't think I heard that, did you? I mean, I like to keep my friends company, and we are friends, aren't we? I have heard that some people are okay with fudging dice rolls to save a character. I don't think that cheating to save a character is inherently bad. Here's the problem. Look, the ones you save aren't the ones who get mad. It's the people you don't save that do get mad. If you have a dragon that flies up and goes, blah, mega death face flames, and it kills everyone except for one guy who walks away unscathed, he's not going to be the one who grabs you around the scruff of the neck and flies with you out the 100th floor window. But don't you worry, I'm sure you'll have plenty of time to explain to him how you just didn't like his character as much on your way to the ground. Most GMs who cheat are like, well, I'm just not going to get caught. Oh, well, it's good that you've decided to opt out of getting caught. Who knew you could even do that? Kind of makes all those jewel thieves in jail look like a bunch of dumbasses now, doesn't it? Look, okay. My point is, just because the players didn't actually see the dice doesn't mean they can't tell that shit is up. It's like, yeah, a teenage couple might just say that they're playing Scrabble into the wee hours of the morning when they're alone together. But around the time the 12th kid rolls around, people can usually put it together that they're porking each other. From what I've seen, the GM thinks they're so clever when the villain just happens to escape from all the spells at the last minute and get away. Or if the doe-eyed paladin just happens to hit 3 goblins through the head with 1 crossbow bolt while hanging upside down blindfolded with 1 arm behind his back. Meanwhile, your character sometimes hurts himself getting out of bed in the morning. Like, oh yeah, you think players can't put that shit together, that there might be a teensy-weensy bit of favoritism being shown? Players are actually pretty sharp about picking up when the GM fudges a bunch of dice behind the GM screen. They just won't say anything at the table to him. Usually if they actually confront the GM about it, you can just assume that he really botched it. It's kind of like if you started filling up your backyard with a sewage pit. The second the neighbors start complaining about all the crocodiles showing up in their living room, you've kind of crossed over the threshold of social appropriateness. Look, the issue I'm getting on about is that when the GM cheats, it usually hurts the game elements of a role-playing game. Say you have some players and they're presented with some kind of a challenge or puzzle, and let's say the players are running out of time, but they fail the challenge. And then, by some miracle, the problem solves itself. Or worse, when they do solve it and the puzzle unsolves itself right as the timer goes out. When the GM breaks that immersion, you don't just ruin that one puzzle. You ruin every other potential puzzle that you would throw at them. With cheating, it's a big deal if it's used to undermine the player's choices. Because if the players feel like their decisions aren't having an impact on the game, they stop taking the game seriously. That's when you get the, oh no, you guys, you're in a tight fix, aren't you? Oh no, if only there was some way to escape. Seriously, guys, you are being very unprofessional right now and are ruining everything. Or sometimes when GMs bullshit story elements, like if they have to retcon something, instead of saying, I botched the story, they try and say, I guess you guys must have missed something crucial back there. Worst case scenario, they believe you. That's when you get the paranoid party that searches every nook and cranny even though there's nothing there. Even worst case scenario, they don't believe you and they never search anything again because it doesn't matter. I do believe in taking a little bit of artistic liberty. Like, for example, if you have a character who just happens to run into the PCs to start a plot element, or the night of the 1,000-year anniversary of the Archlist just happens to be the night that the players arrive in town, I think that those are fine. The only thing which I despise is that when it's used to undermine the player's choices. Like, if they know that this is the 1,000-year anniversary of the Archlist, and so they just come back 5 days later. And then that's when they find out that there was a mistake and the Archlich wrecks shit on the 1,005th day of the anniversary. Wow, what are the odds? Then you have a problem. This might sound a little bit weird, but I think that the GM should tell the players that they don't want something to happen, and shouldn't even bother rolling. Like, they're just gonna fudge the dice, there's no point in rolling them. Why? A few reasons. One is it does give the players a chance to dispute the ruling, which I think they should get an opportunity to do. And 2, it lets them know when you're making exception to the rules. If you GM something one way one day and change it the next, that's when they start getting confused why the vampire which they killed yesterday with a delicate sneeze is now tanking bullets from a Gatling gun like it's a Sherman tank. My basic point is that you need to be fair when you cheat. That makes sense if you just don't think about it. Hopefully this might help out some GMs with running a game if the players aren't taking their game seriously. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you guys next time. In one of my Dungeons & Dragons games, the team ended up on the wrong side of a noble's wrath, and we were being cautious around the city in order to not get caught.
Alright, Algaros. We're gonna split up.
Yeah,
I need you guys to stay out of trouble.
More. Let's see. See some videos I haven't watched yet. Everyone died in Call of Cthulhu.
The first RPG I started GMing on a regular basis was Call of Cthulhu. I actually didn't GM it at all like you're supposed to in the book. The games resembled more like Scooby-Doo, where the players would go out, solve the mystery, encounter some supernatural, and then call it a day. Gee, gang, it looks like Cthulhu is trying to enter our dimension. Zoinks! I hadn't killed anyone in the plot, even though this was our 5th game. However, I ended up having my first death and first TPK in one of my sessions. You might be thinking, it's Call of Cthulhu. I already know how that ended. Trust me, it didn't end the way you're thinking. So the investigation took place in a hotel. However, this hotel used to be a house that was built by this insane owner. He thought that the house was possessed by some kind of evil spirit, and the only way he could confuse it was to continuously keep building, disorienting the entity. Because of that, the home was remodeled again and again, with hallways leading to nothing, stairs that go up and back down leading nowhere. The place was designed like a labyrinth. The players had gotten locked in. The new owner had been listening to the house, and it told her to bar the windows and make sure that no one could leave. So the players were in the spooky house. They also followed a trail of blood into this place, so they know they're looking for a potential murderer. So what's the best thing to do? Split up. One of the characters searched some of the rooms, another went to the library, and last went to the master bedroom. Well, the guy who goes to the master bedroom gets jumped. The enemy in there is this ooze monster that's particularly weak. However, because he doesn't know what its weakness is, and because it's just him by himself, and a few unlucky rolls, he dies. A while later, one of the others comes in and finds his body. He had been in the library, and found out that the monster was horribly phobic to fire. So, at this point the player pulls out a lighter, he looks at me, as the GM, and says, if that's the case, I light the bed on fire. Okay, it's on fire. I'm not exactly sure what he's going for at this point. However, I say, but it is a little smoky in here. You're coughing a bit and the smoke doesn't have anywhere to go. Then I light the wardrobe on fire. Okay, then I light the nightstand on fire. Then I light the drapes, the cabinet, the closet, and then all of the walls on fire, including the door. Okay, they are all on fire. The fires and the smoke are whirling around in here. It's getting hard to breathe and see. Oh dear, I guess I have to leave. You can't, I said. The door is on fire. As I said that, his calm eyes suddenly became wide, as he had this sudden realization like, oh shit, what have I done? I could see him mentally searching to figure out a way to unfuck himself. Then, he had this epiphany, and realized he had a very simple solution. I'll lay down on the floor. Okay... You said there was a small puddle of water on the floor, right? Yes. I'd lay in it, he said, with his arms crossed. I can't get burned. He had this relieved look on his face, like, disaster averted. I then describe how the roof of the building caves in, killing him. Now, if you recall, there was one last player trapped in the house. However, he had told me in an earlier session that he wanted me to put in a dangerous situation and kill off his character. So, ironically, the guy who told me he wanted to die perished last. So now everyone was dead, but the monster died as well, perishing in the fire. After that, I had them roll up new characters and continued the mystery. They investigated why the house burned down, killing all the occupants. The investigators' last session became the plot hook for the following session. Most people were happy with the way the story turned out in the end. The Human Torch retconned that with the death of his friend, his character had gone insane, even though he had originally passed a sanity roll, and that the house was burned down in a heroic attempt to end the darkness. For those of you who think I was being overly harsh on our fireman, I would also like to mention that this was the same player who, in an earlier session, had, in order to collapse a cave, had put dynamite in the cave and then detonated it while he was still inside of the cave. I let him live from that one, not from this one.
You can do the 4x1, 2, and 4. I figure you just make duplicates, but...
What? You haven't played World of Warships yet? Why the hell not?
Subscribe! We find our heroes delving deeper into the dark depths of the dungeon. What will they find in here? Perhaps some treasure, or something more nefarious. Thanks, you guys, for letting me join your group after my last group left me.
Yeah, sure, no problem.
We need to search this dungeon.
I've got a plan. Why don't we split the party?
This is a good idea.
Why didn't we think of that?
I don't
Wow. Hello? Is anyone in here? You know, I wanted to come in here until you said that in that voice. Now I don't really want to.
Seriously, there's lots of cool things in here.
Like what? Wow,
What's with that face?
Well, Rule 27 of Haxworld's Book of Dungeoneering says that you shouldn't talk to dark, shadowy figures with evil glowing eyes.
I need your help, though.
I could be useful? I've never been useful before.
Yes, good. Come closer. See this circle here? I need you to break the seal. Free. I've been trapped in this place for 20 generations. And if
What generations are we talking about here?
What?
I mean, are we talking about elven generations here? But that would be a while. But halfling generations could be a lot shorter.
Look, that doesn't matter, foolish mortal. What?
Or it could be Kenku generations. That's like 15 years or so.
It doesn't matter. You are supposed to be blinding, undoing the circle.
Come to think of it, generations is a really bad way of calculating times.
Do my bidding.
You know, there's a species of flies north of the South Sea called bluebells that only have a lifespan of a few hours. But acknowledge.
The lifespan is going to be shorter than that. Don't release this.
Not sure if lifespan is the proper terminology I'd use there.
Are you
Of course I am. If I lost a friend every time they tried to kill me, I wouldn't have any.
You fool! Now that you have released I will darkness and rule free for thousands of years.
Lammy, did you find anything? Nope.
Tired of climbing up and down stairs? Is walking up or down your stairs too dangerous?
After a long and treacherous journey, our adventurers return as heroes to meet with the king and collect their just reward.
Thank you, brave adventurers, for clearing out the dungeon and getting rid of that foul dark magic that was emanating from it.
Did you guys hear that? He called us adventurers.
There wasn't anything bad happening at all. It was just, like, super weird. You know, because every time someone would go walking by it from the town, they'd be all like, hey, someone needs to clear out that dungeon. And then a few centuries went by and no one did. It was kind of like leaving the light on in your house. Only the opposite of that, because there was darkness emanating from it.
So, money.
Ah, yes. Payment. You will each be given 10 copper pieces as payment for your services.
Yay! We really need to talk money up front next time.
Please. let me know if
Yeah, what's
there's
up?
anything else which I can do for you. Except for giving you more money. I mean, it's more in like a spiritual help than actual, you know, help. Anyway, I'm sure that this money is nothing to you adventurers, but you will live on in the hearts of the people and give them hope, even in the darkest of times. And that alone should be...
Hey, what's up,
I
man?
could steal his pants. I need a new pair.
I'm currently wearing them right now.
I said that out of character. And that too.
Anyway, thank you again for your work, and we will receiving your aid in the future. It is as if your friend is trying to undo my pants.
How did he catch me? Persuasion roll. Whenever you're in trouble, just remember, smile and finger guns, smile and finger guns.
So, you guys can be taking your money by the door and head on out now.
I think I'd like to try stealing his pants again on the way out.
Okay, look, this is starting to get ridiculous. Hey, where did my pants go? And my throne? Someone stole everything! I wonder who it could have been. Oh well, I guess we'll never know.
You need to control your ship with your mouse. You want like...
Introducing 5-hour tea.
So you want to use move to location using the AI controller and pathfinding, and then it'll go to the location you click. But with flying, I'm not sure. You might need to fake the flying.
Some of the more nitty-gritty details about how to play in public D&D.
Not sure how to do AI flying.
I can make a video about GMing in Adventurers League, but this isn't that video. Also, another note, I'm just reading off the current rule set. It's possible they will add or modify this rule set later on, and many rules vary depending on what season it is, so stay up to date. If you don't have a character, you can just go there and they'll give you a pre-made one. But if you do want to make your own character, there's a few quirks. Starting off, they do not use variant rules. The only exceptions are the variant race options and variant point buy in the player's handbook. You are not allowed to start with a first level character that has fly, so no Aarakocras. When making the character and leveling up, the rule is PHB +1, which means you're allowed the player's handbook plus one other supplemental book. One extra.
Okay, I don't need to watch that. No, I can't really. I don't know how to do it. Sorry.
The first RPG I started GMing on a regular basis was called Modular. I actually didn't GM it at all like you're supposed to in the book. The games resembled more like Scoop. I used to play in this Star Wars group for a while, and it still kind of goes on and on. We've been playing since the book first came out. The guy running it was a huge Star Wars fan, and so when he heard Edge of the Empire was coming out, he was just on those books like it's nobody's business. So when he first brought over the books, he had a list of pre-gens. As they were picking through the pre-gens, I'm like, I'm playing Han Solo. And he's like, you don't know there's a Han Solo in here. I'm like, there's a Han Solo in there. Of course there's a Han Solo in there. There is going to be a human smuggler, and that's going to be my character. Because this is Star Wars. I'm playing Han Solo. And so he's flipping through the pre-gens. I'm like, not Han Solo, not Han Solo. And then I saw Pash, human smuggler. Boom! Hand goes down on the sheet. Pull it towards me. I'm Pash. So that character was particularly interesting. And one of the weird things about the character was I always used to get made fun of for playing that character.
To work on these first.
Even though my character had ranks in forgery, skullduggery, disguise, I never did anything illegal. Like, whenever we would have a problem or some sort of an issue, I would always suggest the straightforward, legal, not gonna get us into any trouble kind of an answer.
Thanks for the subscribe.
I'd be like, there seems to be
stay
packages, and these are illegal. Like, if we were to take them through customs, like, they would get caught. And they'd go, you are a smuggler! You smuggle! Look, the profession picks you, I replied, not the other way around. And it was this joke where I was always avoiding getting into trouble, and they made this joke that if we ever got arrested by the stormtroopers or by the Empire, they would just let me go because they're like, oh, that's cute. They're like, hey, you have a clean record, and I would be like, no, really, I'm an outlaw. You have to arrest me. No, please, and they'd kick me out. But anyway, so my character was very straightforward. The only thing really which my character did that it was illegal was I used to smoke death sticks, and that caused a lot of problems in our group. And particularly, the reason why is because whenever my character smoked death sticks, but he would particularly smoke death sticks when there was a fight, or when the action was heavy, or when it's like he thought that when he smoked the death sticks, it was like calming his nerves. Really, they weren't. Every time he smoked death sticks, they would actually give him a black die penalty every single time. The players were actually okay with it. They would get irritated sometimes, but it was in very particular things. But the GM was not having it because he felt like it was kind of lowering the power curve of the group as a whole. So what he decided to do is that he had to get rid of the death sticks, and he wanted to get rid of my character smoking it. But how would he do that? So he came up with a plan. So what happened is that we get some kind of like a distress call, and we end up kind of investigating this disturbance on this planet. So we fly in, we arrive at the planet, we go out, and this planet is this huge jungle, this very dense forest. And there's kind of this weird like Sith activity that's kind of going around here. And as we're going into the forest, suddenly we're hit with some kind of weird like Jedi, Sith energy, and we all fall unconscious. My character wakes up, and he's in the middle of the forest, and he doesn't remember how he got here. None of his friends are nearby. He's just alone. He reaches down to go get a death stick, and the GM goes, you don't have them. And I'm like, what? He's like, yeah, your death sticks are gone. And I'm like, oh man, my character's addicted. Like, this is going to be a problem. And he goes, no. You know what? That's really weird. You don't feel like you need death sticks. I'm like, huh. Okay. He says, oh, you also feel this weird calling to you in the center of the jungle, and you should go investigate it. I'm like, okay. And so basically the story continues, and I end up at this temple, and then I get in touch with friends again. They had been knocked unconscious as well. We group up, we investigate this weird Sith stuff, a bunch of weird shit happens, and then we get back to our ship. We get back to the ship, and then I start looking around for my death sticks. There's no death sticks on the ship either. So what that means is that the Sith, we got lured to a planet. The Sith knocked us all unconscious with his Sith powers, dragged me out, dragged me into the middle of the forest, took my death stick, somehow took my ability to my addiction away, and then went onto our ship, which also had other passengers, found my stash, got the death sticks, and then left. And I mean, this Sith must really, really have wanted those death sticks. I mean, that's a lot of trouble luring us to this planet just to get my death sticks. But anyway, so from then on, my character did not smoke death sticks. Now, some of you might be thinking, hey, this story sounds a bit weird, but hold your horses, because the planet is not just a normal planet, he was a magical Sith planet. And if the story sounds familiar, he's also the same GM who was also GMing for the Typhoon Warlock. Remember that story? Anyway, so from then on, Pash became the sober, not addicted to death sticks character. So literally my character did not do any crime at that point. He was very straight edge now. In one of my D&D games, we had this player who had really bad luck. He would open a door with a knock spell, and it would set off a fire trap, or he'd try to light a darkened room with a light spell, and it would just blind everyone, or he'd cast spider climb, and he'd end up stuck to the wall. This guy had really bad luck. Like, really bad luck. As in, he would get into trouble almost 100% of the time. What I found out later was that this was the GM's doing. The guy running the game hated magic users. His position was, hey, I set up this set of elaborate traps, and then the wizard casts fine traps? Well, now he knows where they are. So, I've set up this plan. Anytime they try to use magic like that, I'll punish them. After doing this for a few months, people will get the hint and stop playing spellcasters. And I responded, why don't you just talk to the players about it? Ben, he said, shaking his head. I know you're new to RPGs, but let me teach you something. GMs aren't supposed to be interfering like that. It's rude to mess with the player's autonomy. Funnily enough, his plan backfired, and it just causes Magic users to try harder and blow multiple spells on one thing. I don't blame the players for being confused, though, because he had some odd exceptions to the rules. He was fine with healing spells, he just had a problem with spells that, quote-unquote, solved problems. So pretty much everything else. Besides, he didn't have any issues with his villains using magic. Like, there was one humorous moment where the enemy gave himself an extra action and summoned a dozen flaming swords that hit me without a save for over 100 points of damage and instantly killed my character. Was I upset about this? No, I wasn't. Don't let anyone else tell you otherwise. The thing I'm getting at here is, don't use in-game mechanics to punish the players for out-of-game decisions. This advice goes for players as well. We had a thief character who kept stealing from the party. So, one day he gets caught and killed. Out of character, we were sick of his thief, but didn't say anything to him. Do you know what happens? The guy just rolls up an even more min-max thief saying, this time I'm just not gonna get caught. And I'm kind of kicking ourselves, like, what did we think was gonna happen? He was gonna roll up like a paladin and be lawful good because now he has seen the error of his ways? No, he's just, you know, people take it as a challenge. Some of you might say, well, what if I ask them and they don't follow the rules? First off, hear them out, because they might have legitimate reasons for what they want to do. Otherwise, if you say something like, there aren't any angels in this world, and someone brings an angel to the table, I'm afraid you might not be able to play with them if they're just going to bypass the rules like that. Whatever you do to solve that problem is up to you. That's not what this video is about. But for the love of God, don't do this weird shit where you don't talk to them and instead say, oh yeah, sure, you can play as an angel. But since you're playing as an angel, you have a celestial curse upon you, which means that you're going to be pursued by a pack of fully grown dire wolf sharks, and all of your rolls are a natural 1. Until you change characters, that is.
You need new glasses, so why not have them delivered to your doorstep? At GlassesUSA.com.
Okay.
Hi everyone. Some people ask me for more RPG stories, so this is a story from a one-shot Deadlands RPG I ran a while back. This particular video is not going to be animated. I was considering just taking like 3 or 5 minutes to animate, but I decided not to drop anything and just tell the whole story instead. The first part of this video is going to be a long background to try and get people up to speed on the setting. So it's going to take a while before we get to the actual story part of this story. Starting off, what is Deadlands, the RPG? Deadlands takes place in an alternate fantasy version of the Wild West. History is the same all the way up to about the middle of the Civil War, where a few interesting things happened. One was the arrival of the Manitos, which are basically demons. You see,
it's all the buildings left of the medieval set
days
here.
long past, there was a big cage match between the good spirits and the evil spirits, called Manitos. The evil spirits lost and were trapped in a place called the Hunting Grounds, which is the spirit realm. And there were these guardian spirits called the Old Ones, who kept them trapped in this realm. The Indians for centuries had good relations to those spirits and communicated with them through rituals and spirit journeys. Then the white men came and fucked that all up. The Indians were dying. They were losing their homes, they were being captured, tortured, and killed. They were losing a war that they could not possibly hope to win. The massacre of the Indians made them scared, confused, angry. And in their anger, they called out for help. And it was the Manitos who replied, saying that they could help as long as the Indians let them free and killed the Old Ones. So, that's what the Indians did. They listened to the lies of the evil spirits and unleashed the spirits of vengeance on the world, which they called Reckoners. I don't know if the Indians knew that the Manitos would cause the West to burn and turn it into a hellscape. I think at this point they didn't care either way, just as long as they could have their vengeance on the world. So the West is now filled with the spirits called Reckoners. What are the Reckoners? They are evil spirits that prey on negative emotion, hate, fear, anger, Reckoners are spirits, so they don't have physical bodies, but they can manifest monsters like Wendigos, dust devils, giant rattlers, the undead, and worse. They can influence people's minds and corrupt the innocent. Reckoners aren't trying to kill people. Reckoners aren't trying to kill people. They just want to spread fear, and that's how they control places and get power. Killing is just a necessary product to keep people in line. Whenever you enter into an area, there's something called fear level, which is how much fear is here and how much power the Manitos have. In areas with high fear, the Manitos can physically warp the area. The food always tastes bitter, or there's a constant cloud cover, or sometimes people vanish in fogs, or at night the moon and sky has a green tinge, or the rocks are this weird purple color, or the roads sometimes move around, abandoning people in the wastes. Because the PCs are either trying to rid the fear, fight the monsters, or give the people hope, they're often targeted by the Reckoners, who might want to either kill the PCs or break them. And fights in the West are a battle for the soul of the people, where the Reckoners are trying to corrupt the PCs and turn the shining white knights into raving madmen. In addition, way out west, the Confederate Union uncovers ghost rock,
for,
which is
hanging
like
paintings
coal,
or whatever,
only
eventually.
much more powerful,
Things on the walls.
and it's this material which makes steampunk technology possible. So, with this new discovery, they start being able to fight back and hold their ground against the Union dogs. So the West is still deeply entrenched in the war between the North and the South, and there's a race to find these ghost rock deposits. Supernatural abilities are organized into a few groups. There's weird science, which is where you get steampunk devices, alchemy, flamethrowers, flying machines, and whatnot. Then there's martial arts from the Chinese, where people use ki to bounce off walls, stun enemies, or leap great distances. Then there's shaman spirit summoning, hucksters who can cast their magic from a deck of cards, playing games against the spirits to lend them their magic. There's voodoo magic, where they can hex people. And lastly, the faithful, who are preachers or reverends who get their power from their faith. Whenever shit goes down, they just start praying real hard for someone to save them, and sometimes cool stuff happens. The story starts off in Illinois. The starting plot hook was this. There were rumors going around from a crazy old guy. Apparently, he had a mine and had found all this gold. However, he said that the stones were moving and the shadows were watching him, so he fled, taking some of the gold, but not all of it. He had kept this a secret until, on his deathbed, he revealed to his friends and family that he abandoned the mine, but the gold is still there, at Devil's Mountain in Utah, waiting for someone to claim it. His relatives didn't believe him, but word traveled around, and eventually the PCs got wind of it and decided to go after the unclaimed loot. There's 3 characters. The first is a Texas Ranger called Jimmy the Kid. Rangers in this game fight against the monsters and are kind of like these hunters who travel around trying to help people. This PC had gotten a trait called Fan the Hammer, which let him do that Hollywood thing, you know, the one you see the cowboys do in the movies where they put the gun at their side and fire off a bunch of quick shots. He was a trick shooter. But if he rolled a 1 when he was fanning the hammer, he'd shoot his allies. Then there was a huckster called King. He cast his magic from a deck of cards and playing games with a spirit. What was interesting was this character didn't pick up many offensive abilities. He decided to play a more utility kind of guy, like stun attacks, binding, barriers, and animal talk, so that when he got attacked, he might cast stun and then run away, or if he got shot at, he would put up a barrier, or he could talk to animals and get information. The last guy, this guy, he was playing as a prospector, and as a prospector, he always wore a bandolier of dynamite that crisscrossed his chest. In addition, he picked up a trait called Grim Servant of Death. That sounds fun, doesn't it? Grim Servant of Death is a trait which says that whenever you make an attack, if you roll a 1, you automatically hit your ally. In addition, we were playing Savage Worlds, and his attack roll was a D8. So just to clarify, if he rolled a 1 on an 8-sided die, he would hit an ally. In addition, if there's an explosion and there is dynamite in the explosion, it also detonates. You can see where this is going, and yes, this was a very, very short adventure. He always introduced himself as Prospector Jenkins, Grim Servant of Death, and the other players would go, wait, what did you say? Prospector Jenkins. I thought I heard, nope, just Prospector Jenkins. You didn't say anything else? Nope, just Prospector Jenkins. So, the PCs are hanging out in the saloon. They hear about this rumor out in Utah about the Devil's Mountain, and they decide to team up, head out there, and get the gold. The huckster tries to talk to some migratory birds and get information. Ask them if they've seen this Devil's Mountain in Utah that the story said. However, the bird doesn't know what a Utah is, let alone Devil's Mountain. So they decide to head over to Salt Lake City and ask around for information there. On the train ride over, the train gets attacked by bandits. What was funny was the second I said, "There's some guys and horses with bandanas around their mouths riding up to the train," they were saying, "Who do you think those guys could be?" And another one said, "Well, we are playing a Western, so this is clearly a train heist." There was a short gunfight, and then the huckster drew a card from his deck and threw it, which turned out to be a concussive thunderclap, which all the bandits had to roll against or be stunned. I'm like, all of the riders made their saves and stayed conscious. Damn it, the player said. But their horses didn't. So a bunch of them are thrown off their mounts as the horses are knocked unconscious and tumbled to the ground. I eventually had the bandits just flee because they were like, "We're getting dynamite thrown at us, there's shots being fired, 2 of our guys are dead, and now there's thunder knocking our horses unconscious, and we can't catch up with the train, so we don't have a prayer of taking this heist." And they just left. I just had them leave. Eventually the trio settle down and arrive in Salt Lake City. Salt Lake City is called the City of Gloom. The city is very heavily industrialized with massive factories belching out smoke and is the hub for trading ghost rock. As the PCs walk off the train, they're met with a preacher who's standing on a soapbox and shouting to people, "Repent, all ye sinners! Your cursed souls will be pulled beneath the earth to the place of torment."
All corner.
And it's not just one, but like 20 preachers are there. As you're walking around, they're all shouting at the people coming off the train, telling them to repent. "God damn it, not Mormons, anything but Mormons," the PCs said. And I said, "Well, they aren't Mormons exactly," and I just kind of leave it at that. "You there!" One of the preachers pointed at one of the PCs. "I can tell the sin in your eyes. You have a demon inside of you." And they just keep pointing at people and telling them to repent. Eventually the huckster PC, King, gets pissed off. And he starts heckling the preacher back, saying things like, "You do realize your job is kind of pointless, right? There's like 20 preachers here. We shepherd the lost," the preacher said. "We are a light unto the darkness. We guide the way to our Lord Jesus Christ. You know, if you guys were any good at what you did, you wouldn't need 20 people out here. You'd just need one." The huckster says, chuckling to himself and walking off. As King's back is turned, the ranger noticed that the preacher looked away toward this guy in the back of the crowd. Dressed like a reverend, only his clothes were blood red and with a blood red hat, and he has scars all over his face. The preacher nods to the reverend, then nods to King. The reverend looks at the huckster, gives a nod back, and then starts to tail King. As the three walk through the streets of Salt Lake City, there's a preacher on every corner, calling people to repent for their sins. They also talk about the glorious Brother Dalton, who can loose people from their curse of damnation. There are also people dressed in red, wearing reverend clothes. When they get to the saloon, it's almost empty. There's no gambling, no drinking, and no ruckus. The three start asking around trying to get information about Devil's Mountain. Apparently there's a mountain range down south, which people call Devil's Mountain, because there are 2 twisted peaks next to each other that looks like devil's horns. As they're asking around, the ranger goes out, looking for more information. He finds that there are 3 reverends hanging by the saloon. 1 out back, 2 in front, on the left and the right sides. It looks like they got the place surrounded. After they figure out where they're going, they leave the saloon, heading to the edge of town. There's a flood of people going the other way, walking towards the center. "Where are you going?" a young woman asked. "We were going to ask you guys that same question," the ranger said. "We're heading out of town now." "Oh, you mustn't," the woman said. "You might miss Brother Dalton's preaching." "Who?" they asked. She gasps and goes, "You must be new here. Brother Dalton is the one who has been given direct revelation from our Lord and Savior, giving us power over the devil." We're kind of busy. We have more important stuff to do," the ranger says, motioning the PCs the other way. The woman has these wide eyes with fear, and she backs away from the group slowly. As the group reaches the edge of town, it's eerie. There's a heavy fog that is rolling around, obscuring the side alleys. There's no noise, and it's dead silent. It seems like everyone in the city is at Brother Dalton's service. Up ahead, they hear muttering, and a reverend appears through the fog. It's the same one they had seen earlier and is standing across their path, talking to himself and quoting Bible verses. There's 2 other reverends flanking them down each of the other alleys. "It is with his loyal servant Brother Dalton that the Lord speaks, calling all those who are saved to him, and those who flee from such a voice," he lowered his head, "must be of the devil." Immediately a fight breaks out. The other 2 reverends open fire with their pistols. The Reverend without a gun raises up his hand and says, Isaiah 66:16, for the Lord will execute judgment by fire, and by his sword on all flesh, and those slain by the Lord will be many. And these gouts of flame came out of his hands toward them. The huckster quickly pulls a card from his deck and summons a wall of earth which blocked the fire. The three split up. The Ranger takes one gunslinger, the Prospector takes the other, and they pit off one magical talent against the other. Huh? You know who also uses fire? The devil, King says, and he rolls to try and convince the Reverend that Brother Dalton is evil. So he makes a persuasion roll against the Reverend's faith. He did not know that the Reverend's faith was through the roof. John 8:44, you belong to your father, the devil, and you want to carry out your father's desires. He was a murderer from the beginning, not holding to the truth, for there is no truth in him. When he lies, he speaks in his native tongue, for he is a liar and the father of lies. The Reverend raises his hands up and recites, Numbers 21:6, the Lord sent fiery serpents among the people, and they bit the people, so that many people of Israel died. And he turned the sticks to snakes and had them attack the huckster. Okay, first fire, then snakes, the huckster said. You're using a lot of demonic attacks. All is as the Lord wills it. The huckster pulls a Beast Friend card to turn the snakes to his side and has them attack the Reverend. Using serpents against a servant of God, you truly are of your father, the devil. I just turned the serpents on you. You were the one that summoned them. I can't even talk to you. While the two magic users are having a showdown, the two gunslingers are having a shootout. Jimmy the Kid does his fan the hammer thing. 3 of the shots hit the gunslinger, one going through his head and out the back. The Prospector just ducks behind some barrels as shots are ripping through the wood. He pulls out a stick of dynamite, lights it, and overhand chucks it into the alley. It detonates, taking out the side walls of the building nearby and causing it to collapse. Obviously killing the Reverend as well. The last Reverend dies to snake bites going, the Lord giveth, and the Lord taketh away. He dies. I tell the players, you guys were causing quite a commotion with the gunfight and the dynamite and the building collapsing. Several hurried footsteps are rushing this way. We start running, the Ranger says, and they are taking off, getting away as fast as they can. Don't worry, you guys, I got this, Prospector Jenkins says. He pulls out a stick of dynamite and lights it and throws it over his shoulder. This should slow him down. And he rolled a 1. So the dynamite that he threw over his shoulder hits a sign above his head and bounces back down in front of them, hitting one of his friends and immediately detonates. But remember, they're running together, so everyone gets hit as well as Jenkins, and so does every other stick of dynamite on his bandolier. There's a loud roar as 22 sticks of dynamite go off, leveling the entire block, causing a small earthquake, and everyone in the party dies hideously, leaving just a giant glass crater where they were. And that's where the story ends. At the table, I close the books and I look around. There's an awkward silence over the group. I say, okay, I guess our story's over. I look around. No one is saying anything. This is just a one-shot, so I don't mind ending it here. It's kind of a non-traditional ending. I mean, do you guys want it to end here? Yeah, I guess, one of them says. Sure. I'll look over to a stack of board games. We still have some more time. Do you guys want to play a board game like Resistance or Magic or Tavern Brawler? More silence. I kind of want to keep playing, one of them pipes up. Yeah, me too, someone else said. Sure, I guess we could, I told them, but you guys are kind of dead. How do you want to handle that? Well, one of the PCs explained, when he threw the dynamite, we said we were running together and we were next to each other, but we weren't like next to each other? Uh-huh, I nodded. We were running together, but I was like 10 yards ahead of him, so I was the only one who got hit with the dynamite, not them. Okay, all right, I guess we'll call this an alternate universe, I said. We'll say that the blast ripped a hole in space and time. Technically, you guys died. We'll say that that's one ending, but we're playing another hypothetical universe where you guys survived that. So we keep playing. The Ranger takes some damage from the blast, but he's okay. They reach the stables. Let's grab some horses and get out of here. Unfortunately, the door was locked. Don't worry, I've got this, Prospector Jenkins says, throwing dynamite at the door. He's right, it does unlock the door, but it causes the stables to collapse and kill all the horses inside. Well, never mind, I guess we're walking then. The PCs trek out across the desert toward Devil's Mountain. It's a rough road without any food or water, so they have to hunt to survive. Halfway through, they encounter a dust devil, which is one of those dirt tornadoes, only it's wrapped in barbed wire and basically sucks people inside and rips them apart, which they manage to fend off. Eventually, they arrive at Devil's Mountain. They start looking around for a little, but it quickly becomes nighttime, so they set up camp. The huckster casts his talk with animals for a bit to one of the birds. Hello there, Mr. Bird, he says. We're new to the area. Did you happen to see any mine or gold? Mine? Gold? What's that? The bird was confused about. Gold? Well, that's a shiny rock, he said. Oh yes, I think I know what that is. It's kind of a silvery red, right? No, the PC said, but that might be metal. Where is that? Oh, it's up on the mountain, the bird said. But we don't go there. That's the cave where the big and scary lives. The big and scary? What's that? You know, big, the bird spread its wings, and scary, and he makes these claw motions with its wings. Okay, thank you. I guess we'll check it out tomorrow. So they spend the night in the valley with a little fire. King turns to watch and look up at the stars. When it's Jimmy the Kid's turn on watch, he notices a large black shadow descending down the slope towards the camp, and he wakes everyone up. The huckster uses his earth shield and makes a giant dome over them, concealing them. Outside, they hear something trudging around the campsite, sniffing around. After a few minutes, the thing is gone. King drops the shield and they look around. The place is a wreck, with stuff destroyed and knocked away and bite marks in some of their packs. There are footprints everywhere. But they all failed their identify rolls, so all they can tell is that it's clawed and big. The footprints are about 3 feet long or so. The next day, they summit the mountain, following several metal cables that go up to the mine. Once they get there, they have this big debate. The big and scary is probably in there, so should they wait till night? See if it leaves, grab the gold, and then go? Or should they go in there now, try to sneakily get in, get the gold, and get out? Eventually, they decide to go in there now. So they pull out a lamp, light it, and enter into the mine. The group goes down a little ways before they see a shimmer, eventually coming to a cavernous part of the hull, and there it is. Gold, glorious gold. Piles and piles of it left there for the taking. However, there's something else in there as well, and it's pissed. Remember earlier how I said that the Manitos have the ability to raise the dead and give life to that which has no life? Well, this area, in particular, had a lot of dinosaur fossils here. So, as they enter into the mine, pulling itself off of the wall from its nesting site is a living fossil of a motherfucking Tyrannosaurus Rex. So the PCs immediately panic. King pulls a card from his deck and summons his Earth Shield, forming a dome and protecting everyone. The T-Rex puts 1 foot on the dome and crushes it under its weight. They all take a boatload of damage, and as the thing collapses, they all go prone under it. The lamp goes out, so it's pitch black in the cave now. Bad idea! This was a bad idea, Jim the Kid said. Now they're trapped under the weight of the earth and the T-Rex. Prospector Jenkins pulls out a stick of dynamite and lights it. It's the only light now. Jimmy the Kid pulls out his gun and does his fan the hammer, firing off 6 rapid shots. Unfortunately, he gets really, really bad rolls. He rolls 3 1s, which, if you remember, meant that he hits one of his friends. So he accidentally shoots the prospector 3 times from the ricochet off the walls, which knocks the prospector unconscious. So he drops the stick of dynamite on the ground next to the players who go, "Are we going to have another TPK?" And I'm like, look, you guys, this is a one-shot. We're at the end of the game. If you guys die here, you die here. I'm not gonna bring you guys back. Then the T-Rex crushed them again, and this time, Jimmy the Kid went unconscious. So it was just the huckster who's crushed under the earth, the snarling T-Rex, and this hissing stick of dynamite, and 1 round before it goes off. Then King goes, okay, I want to grab the stick of dynamite. I'm like, okay, make an acrobatics to try and squeeze your arm out. He makes it. All right, you got the dynamite in your hand. What do you want to do with it? I toss it up to the T-Rex's head. Okay, you do know that its head is close to the ceiling, I said. It could cause the whole place to collapse in on you guys. I don't care, it's the best thing I got. And he tosses it. He makes a roll and the thing detonates right where it was supposed to. Okay, I'll roll to see if the cave collapses. I roll a d20 and look at it. I ask the huckster, even or odd? He thinks for a second. Even. Then I go, as the dynamite goes off, The cave does not collapse. The T-Rex explodes, sending bones flying out and turning him to dust. As the dust settles, the other two eventually recover. The three of you are now sitting in the cave, and to one side are piles and piles of gold. Hard-fought spoils of your journey. Even though they technically died earlier and none of this happened. And that's where our story ends. That is the one and only game of Deadlands I ever GM'd. So you guys don't get to ask me for more stories about it. That's the only one I ran. So thanks for watching, and I will see you guys next time. Call of Cthulhu story. Hey everyone! This is not going to be one of my usual animated videos. This video is actually going to be a longer story video from when I ran a superhero game. The reason is that some people have messaged me after I did the Deadlands story and the Call of Cthulhu story, and they were interested in having me tell other stories from some of the other games that I've ran. And unfortunately, you know, with the animated videos, you can't really go into too much detail and they have to be pretty short. I'm going to do this one. This one is probably not going to be a regular thing, but, you know, on occasion I'll make kind of these longer videos because I think some people are interested in them. So first getting into that, I actually have ran quite a few superhero games. When I was talking in the interview, one of the questions which came up was like, what kind of games do you play and what other games do you run? Because I had brought up that I ran Fantasy Age. What I'm going to do is I'm actually just going to be putting up a list, and this is, the first list is going to be the games that I play the most, and then the second list is going to be games that I have run the most as a GM. So the first list, the games I have played the most, starting off at the top of the list, most played games for me first is D&D 5th edition. Top of the list. I've been playing it a little bit since it came out. Like I've had a weekly group and it's just, you know, you get all these different sessions in and then everyone wants to run it. So I get to play it quite a bit. Then second on the list is Star Wars Edge of the Empire. Star Wars Edge of the Empire, I have a friend who loves that game, loves running it, loves playing in it. So I've played quite a bit of it. It is, once again, it's my second most played tabletop RPG. Then you've got third is D&D 4th edition, which I've played a lot of. I was playing it for about 2 years.
This is a long video of him just talking about random crap.
We find our heroes in a terrible situation, surrounded on all sides by kobolds? Really? Kobolds? Will they be able to fight their way out? Who knows? The fight was going their way until tragedy struck. Thrognar, no!
It's okay, Lemmy. I'm going off to a better place now.
Thrognar, no, we need you. I need you.
It's fine. I already have another character in mind. Named Silas.
Really?
Yeah, it's a dragon.
A dragonkin?
No, like an actual dragon.
Oh, that sounds kind of cool.
He's also part elf as well. Carries double katanas, wears a trench coat. However, because he's half elf, he can only use his fiery breath 10 times a day.
Oh, that's good for you.
I've even been working on a theme song for him. Da-na-na-na-na-na-na. Double katanas and his fiery breath. He's coming for you, bringing his fiery death. When you see a shadow in a dragon shadow above you, there's no escape.
It's a good song. It's a good song.
It's nice.
You know, that doesn't sound half bad. I've actually been thinking of my own new character, Barbarian.
Barbarian, Lemmy, are you by any chance a power gamer?
What? Me? No.
The GM might have to nerf your character. Goodbye, Lemmy. I'm off to the tavern in the sky.
But I love you.
What did you say?
Me? I
was using the Windows like
it was love in a
corners.
platonic brotherly sense. I mean, if I had said love, hypothetically, it would have been in a platonic sense. It wasn't said. The word was not said. I didn't say love, except for just now. But now I am proceeding that.
Blah. Ragnar!
That arrow did 1 damage to him. He's gonna be fine.
Alright, I think I've seen all of his videos, but maybe there's something, maybe there's one that is worth rewatching for you guys to see, because let's do this one.
This story comes from my first time GMing a Dungeons & Dragons game. I subbed in for the regular GM. I got my players together with their first level...
Ah, sorry.
This story comes from my first time GMing a Dungeons & Dragons game. I subbed in for the regular GM. I got my players together with their first level characters, my GM screen, my notes, a little nervous, but I was ready to go. So, the story starts off in a town of Harvest Fall, Autumn, Fall, Harvest Fall. That's a name. There are people running around, doing their thing, and the sky is up there still. You guys are in the tavern, sitting around the table and just chillaxing. Outside, there's a young woman who's running around and talking to people, and she looks really worried and comes into the tavern.
Oh, a young woman is worried. That sounds like she's missing her son. And let me guess, she wants us to find him, doesn't she?
The woman says that her son is missing and needs someone to find him.
Do not fret, young helpless no-name NPC. My companions and I shall save your nondescript child's frail body from whatever fate it may or may not be awaiting him.
My hero.
The group tracked the missing child to the sewers where he'd gotten nabbed by something and drug inside.
The sewers? Ew! That's gross, Ben! Why do we have to go in there? If I was GMing a game, my story would be about Nev!
Well, you aren't running a game. I am. This is my story, and my story is about shit. So get your butt in there and we'll find that missing kid. As they trekked through the sewers, the pipe opened into a big room where several other pipes were feeding into, where there's a giant pile of, you know, what was down there. I had the players roll their constitution. They all started puking on each other. You know, I didn't actually think about it when I was writing this game, but sewers are kind of gross places, aren't they?
You think?
At the far end of the pit is the kid they were looking for, passed out on some rubble. The group realized that they need to have someone get over there. So the elf volunteered, tying the rope from one side and firing an arrow across. She got on the rope and started climbing across the pool of muck, going,
Ew, gross, don't look down.
Halfway across, a tentacle came out and tried to grab her. However, she dodged it, and the tentacle slunk underneath the murky water.
You guys, I think something tried to grab me!
Go faster! The elf crossed to the other side. She picked up the lost kid and tied him to her back. Before she could get back on the rope, another tentacle came up and grabbed her and the kid and pulled both of them off the rubble and into the muck. What's under the water is an otiug, basically a giant mouth with tentacles. They eat waste and garbage and live in the sewers. The elf is now covered in human waste. She's wailing around in the water going,
Help me! Help me! You guys have to help me! Help me! Someone save me!
The rest of the group is watching for the pipe going.
So, does anyone want to go down there and help her? I'm not good at fighting in the water.
Me neither.
I'm sure she can fix it herself, eventually.
The group was just hanging back, watching her flail in the water, as the thing was taking occasional bites of her. After a while, the Avenger was like,
yeah, I should probably do something to help her, shouldn't I?
So the Avenger summoned a freaking angel, which reached down and pulled the elf out of the water. No, I'm not telling that part of the story wrong. So they have a tug of war over the character, until eventually the angel wins and pulls her to safety. The otiug emerges from the water to chase her down. But the second it comes out, the players nuke it to oblivion with their spells. Just as the otiug dies, the guards show up, because they heard all the commotion in the sewers.
Oh, now they decide to come down here. Lazy pricks.
They start cleaning up and take the body of the monster away. It turns out that the captain of the guards has been taking the monster corpses, and no one knows what is happening to them.
Ow! The otiug's bodies are being taken away. That sounds like an evil scientist is involved and is collecting monsters and is using them for dark research or reanimating them under his control.
This is a DMD story.
12 other otiugs jump the elf and murder her, and her body is never seen from again.
Well, it's a mystery. Who knows what's really happening?
Ever since that time, my players have been paranoid of water, and make jokes that they won't go down into the sewers even if they see a sack of gold and some jewels getting washed down there. They brought it up even when I'm running a completely different game, Call of Cthulhu. Okay, look, this is a freaking bathtub, people. You guys, not every small body of water is hiding an otiug. Just kidding, I lied. Nowhere is safe. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you guys next time.
Okay, so I was going to do a video on...
Alright, let me see. Oh, I didn't watch this one, actually.
I had a friend once who decided he wanted to podcast one of our RPGs onto the interwebs. He thought this was a good idea for some reason. I think he was under some kind of delusion that after a long day's work, people would want to settle down with the kids and listen to a 2-hour debate between a player and a GM about whether or not a dragon's armor resistance still works if Aragorn shoved his sword up Smaug's butthole. So, this GM decided to put together a team of his best and brightest players.
That's all of them, then.
Also, he brought me along for some reason.
Yeah.
So we set out to make a recording of our session. But the GM warned us. He didn't want any funny business. No out-of-character jokes. Don't break the immersion. Don't break character. Sure. I know that most of you don't really know my friends, so you might be asking, are you guys usually serious? To which my answer is, no! So it's like, oh yeah, right, in what universe do you think this is gonna work? This one apparently. Funnily enough, we weren't funny. We did end up playing the game, and we didn't break character. I think we all had this fear of God instilled with this GM. At least until I fucked that up. We'd switched over from D&D for a session of Star Wars, and we're going through a mission to get our lightsabers. Except for that guy who started off with 5 of the fucking things. There's always one of those guys in every party, am I right? He could have given us each one, but no. We had to go on a quest for them, because it builds character or some shit like that. Anyway, everyone else gets their weapons through trial and tribulation until I'm the last person. I finally get mine. Then the GM narrates how my saber extends, and I mime a simple dick joke about my saber extending. Because I don't want it to show up on the serious podcast, and the other players chuckle a little bit. But the GM continues reading from his sheet. Then he says, "At the sight of Ben's lightsaber, your lightsabers extend."
Oh, that's Angora.
narrow,
Yeah, what's up? I thought it was just one of the people that was
coming
already
together
here.
in the center, touching one another. All us players are laughing. I'm leaning over to laugh into my shoulder, and the others are trying to keep quiet. But the GM continues. "Suddenly, white light bursts forth from them, filling up the entire cave." He had to stop because those players were laughing so loud that they were drowning him out. The GM was so mad. He was so angry. He started yelling at us. "What do you guys think? This is so funny. Oh, you guys think you can just ruin my game by being immature?" We had to explain it to him because he didn't get it. He didn't get it. We didn't want to laugh on the podcast. We just couldn't help it. He was so mad and yelled at us for so long. He was really close to just saying, "Rocks fall, we're all dead." If I had had a character killed off every time I laughed in a campaign, I don't think I would have gotten out of the tavern alive.
Let's see what I can build here. I'll start playing around with this. It's another video by him. I haven't watched yet.
Tired of climbing up and down stairs? Is walking up or down your stairs too dangerous? Let Williams lifts help you regain your mobility and freedom.
Oh my god.
We played co-op Breath of the Wild. As you know, on the Nintendo Switch, you can split the controllers, and normally you'd use one on each hand. But what we did was split them up between the players, with one person controlling Link's aiming and firing, while the other person controls the movement. I don't own a Nintendo Switch. After all, I'm not some kind of crazy fanatic who watches the release days like a hawk. But I know someone who does, and he's the only friend who hasn't installed good enough locks to keep me out of the house.
Start with stairs.
Mean he likes me.
To go into.
We started playing Zelda co-op because we were getting sick of the other co-op game we had on the Switch.
Yeah, I'll do, like,
I mean, you're either playing Zelda or
here.
the other one. What was it called? The one with the two pieces of paper that keep making suggestive faces at each other. Flippersnip. Ah, there we go. Which gets an award for being the worst game to play while someone is overhearing you talking to a friend, as you're trying to tell your partner to hold still while you pack your ooze into his hole. Meanwhile, the whole time I was trying to understand, how do two pieces of paper cut each other? So we started playing Zelda, and the game began with Link coming out of magical-induced sleepy time. We immediately set out into the world and saw all that the landscape had to offer. So, finally, after all of what people have been talking about, they made The Legend of Zelda open world. Yes, they took the adventure story and took it to the open world. Bit of a stretch for the series, don't you think? From what I heard, Nintendo was trying to fix a lot of the problems people had with Skyward Sword, which I never played, but from what I hear online, it was worse than the Holocaust. I know in the previous ones they made the stories linear, so you had to follow the temples in the correct order. Now they made the game so that after the tutorial, you can fly right over to Ganon's castle and get his sword shoved up into your ass if that's what you're into. They also got rid of characters like Navi and Fi, so I don't have someone in game following me around telling me I'm doing something wrong. I've got my two other friends for that. Fuck this story. You can't tell me what to do. Oh god, these goblins are trying to murder me. Why doesn't this game tell me what I'm supposed to be doing? There's a lot here to find and explore. I wonder, what could be hiding around the next corner? Murder. Mostly just murder. Mostly just murder. Lots and lots of murder everywhere. When I was playing, I encountered one of the Guardians on the ground. Oh, hey, look at this weird mechanical thing with one eye. Aww, it's looking right at me. Hi there, new friend.
Make a death face laser.
Well, that went over almost as bad as most people I meet in real life. The world's pretty big. I hear there's supposed to be about 900 Korok seeds all over the map. Getting the first 899 are probably the easy part, but trying to figure out where that last one is would drive me insane. I've had nightmares like that. You can also find Great Fairy Springs, just like in the Ocarina of Time. I like that they kept the Great Fairies absolutely terrifying, and also gave them suggestive lines of dialogue. Lots of suggestive dialogue. Unlike other Zelda games, they have a stamina meter which slowly drains as you get to your destination, either climbing or flying or running. but it can be a tense struggle as you watch it go down slowly and wonder if you will have enough time to reach your destination, until you remember that you can eat foods in midair to restore your stamina, until you open your inventory in the pause menu and you remember you don't have any, and you sit there on the pause menu realizing that you're nanoseconds from death and you go through the Wile E. Coyote death scene. The game is supposed to get easier the longer you play, as you get fancy magic gear. However, it's easy to get into the situation where you have nothing but nice things and you don't want to waste your good gear on lame enemies. First world problems. It actually wasn't as hard as it sounds to play co-op Zelda, because shrines are mostly puzzle-based. So it wasn't about pulling off an insane feat of combos and attacks, but more hitting the correct switches on the wind fans to launch the ball to the target. The hardest part about the game was keeping your cool while your friends are backseat gaming. No, you're not supposed to be jumping there. We have to go the other way. At first...
I'll play one that I've listened to before, so I concentrate on this.
Today's Dungeons & Dragons story takes place when the team was crossing a vast desert. We were chasing down a malevolent wizard, Garethor, who had managed to collect the black crystals and were using their power to lead to the end of the world.
And so, the council is sending out you 5 adventurers to retrieve the black crystals and save our world. It will be your responsibility to stop Garethor from using his dark power to engulf the world in darkness.
How did Garethor get the crystals? I mean, when you really stop and think about it, wasn't there like a curse spell or something that prevented him from picking them up? Yeah, really weird. Totally unexpected. No idea how he did that. That's magic. What can you do?
Katya, I don't think they figured out that we were the ones who accidentally gave him the crystals.
You know, I can hear you from over...
I don't interrupt you when you're talking.
So, it seems like we're in the clear.
We set out across the desert and came upon some ruins. Ancient, crumbling ruins? Yes, please. We had a choice. Do we want to explore the tower or the temple? We had a choice until our wizard threw a fireball into the tower, which blew out the lower level, causing the entire thing to collapse. Well, guess we just have the temple then. Hope there wasn't anything important in the tower. We explored the ruins, and inside we found a thrycreen, this insect-like creature with 4 arms that eats humans, dwarves, halflings, and other humanoids, but has a particular taste for elves. However, this one was just by itself, hiding in the corner, camouflaged with its chameleon carapace. I let the group know, you know, I could just watch this one guy here. If he tries anything funny, I can give him the old stabby stab. But we still need to explore the rest of the ruins. Why don't we split the party? You guys can go down there in that place that looks perfectly safe. And I can stay up here. Wow, that's a great idea.
That'll really save time.
Why didn't we think of that? So the rest of the group explored farther down into the ruins, while I watched the thrycreen by myself, alone, without anyone there. I'm trying to make a point here. I don't know if that's coming across or not. Down below, the group found an elf, and while they were trying to rescue her, she transformed immediately into a lamia, turning our ranger into her mind slave, and the party started battling it out below grounds. As the noises of the fight rose up, I could hear them fighting the floor below. The GM goes, the thrycreen you are standing watch against starts cautiously approaching you, drawing its weapons. Oh, you want to go? Do you want to go? As well as his 9 other companions, who are just hiding out, camouflaged in the room. I want to go. I'm gonna go. As you're leaving the room, you take opportunity attacks from all of them. So that's,
there we go.
What,
That's better.
10 attacks? Ow, 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 ow. Oh, look. Plus they have multi-attacks. That's, wow, there's another 10 rounds of attacks on you. Are you freaking kidding me? I ran back to the tunnel where our elf ranger had already murdered 2 of our party members.
You know, I've never actually used his short swords in close combat. I'm actually really dangerous like this.
Oh, well, it's good that you're having fun and learning more about your character while you're stabbing me to death. Eventually, I managed to down our ranger, who had already been wounded by the other 2. The lamia bolted and fled down the hall with just 2 hit points. Almost dead. In my moment of glory, I pulled out a javelin.
Oh, okay. If I'm
If
holding
you think
down
you're gonna
shift.
get away, you better.
Oh, I gotta fix it on the other side when I'm not
And I
holding down
threw
shift.
the javelin.
Okay. Real quick.
And it went thunk into the dirt, like 5
Okay.
feet
Yeah,
from
let me-
me. Well, I meant to do that. Eventually, a high-level druid saved us. She picked up the bird. I picked up the other two, and we bolted out of there. Once we were a good distance away, safely out in the empty desert, I talked to Katya about our ranger's situation. So, he's under a domination spell. What can you tell me about it? Like, how long does it last? Like, a minute, 10 minutes, an hour, 1 month. Hey, did you know that if it's a higher level spell slot, it could be made up to a year or permanent? That's pretty neat. I did not know that, Katya. Thank you for informing me about a spell you currently can't help us with. We ended up talking to the ranger once he woke up. Release me. I must return to protect my master. So, you are currently trying to protect her. Alright, just hear me out here. We are the greatest danger to her, right? So, what that means...
Like, if you
is
think about
that
it
in
hard
order to
enough, it's, like,
protect her,
possible to
you
line
need
them
to
up.
be here to keep an eye on
I'm sure.
us and
Or
be
if you
with
just, like,
us.
put down
But
enough
to be with
things
us,
to
that
snap
means
things
that you
to
shouldn't be fighting us.
outside and then delete
what
the
that
outside
means
things, you can
is that
probably do
you're
it. Like, people are
actually
probably, like, a lot
on our
better at
side
figuring out what to do
and
with this.
totally
I've enabled a lot of control on it, basically.
Or I could just keep you tied up. That works too. Eventually the cleric woke up. He learned a spell to fix it and dispelled the mind control. We never did go back to kill that Lamia. Wow, I'm sure nothing bad happens. I'm pretty sure nothing bad's going to happen.
See if there's any other good channels for this subject. Because it's Puffin Forest. Christmas with the Crab. I don't know, the 6-hour fight. D&D stories and what these guys are cool sometimes. I'll watch this.
Hey guys, Dave from Nerdarchy, for nerds, by nerds. Hanging out with this nerd. Nerdarchy's dead. Hey, your game has ended. Your dice has been bagged. Your books have been shelved. But does your D&D story have to end there?
Jump down to the description below where you can sign up for Nerdarchy, the newsletter. Get weekly gaming tips as well as learn how to game with us.
Alright, today we're going to talk about
There we go.
D&D stories and that we
Oh,
create
shit.
at the table and how much they mean going beyond the gaming
No,
session.
no, I can't
itself.
rotate. Okay.
So, I mean,
Hmm.
if you look at the average gamer, like, they've all got stories to tell. And you can sit down and just have conversations. And I'm certain if you've been following our channel, you know some of these stories almost as well as we do, because we've shared the same thing over and over again because they are so meaningful and so,
I just
built
thought about it a
into
lot.
who we
Now
are
I'm
as
like,
nerds, as gamers.
so if I do
to
hit
us, it's just
crouch,
awesome.
then da-da-da,
Yeah, it becomes this great bonding experience
set active
between a group of
rotation to
friends.
that.
Or even
and
strangers
set
sometimes,
placing
right?
item
You develop
rotator.
these stories that you can tell later on from a gaming session, whether it's your home group with people you know
Maybe I
all
should
your
clear
life,
build
new people you
offset
just met at the
rotation.
gaming store at a gaming convention, and they just stick out, right? You may not even remember the person's name, but you'll remember maybe the name of their character or the things they did in your game. Like I remember we did our first con as the Nerdarchy Philly Games Con, right? And that was probably 2-3
Probably
years
something I'd
ago.
added more recently.
almost 4.
And that's where we met Natalie. She ended up later playing in one of our online games. But, I just remember her being in that game and playing a bard, and she would always try and do the bardic knowledge, and she kept failing her checks. But immediately went into a bullshit story with the character about whatever the piece of lore was that the character was talking about. And it was completely wrong, but it was awesome and hilarious at the table.
Yeah, and I've gamed with people at a recent con, and because of the theme of the game, he latched on to another character's story because he thought that was pertaining to the main plot, and he thought I must have slipped a note to the player, and have him, insert this.
Try
because
this.
such
It's either
and
this or setting the
such.
other one to
like,
0 and swapping
he
them
was
around.
wrapped up on this idea, and he kept coming back to it over and over.
One of these
again.
is supposed to get
And,
set
like,
to nothing.
Once it was over and we had this conversation, he's like,
Wait, no, not there.
I really thought you should know. Even though it was his own kid. Like, he had no idea that there wasn't this thing going on, because all it takes is the DM just walking past another player at the table to think that a note might have changed hands.
Now, I believe it was Doug was telling me he saw a study that actually says your brain doesn't differentiate between the experiences you have in the game and real life. you logically know, but you know those emotions that you feel from the game, they're real. Like your brain doesn't know the difference that it's fake.
Well, when you get wrapped up in it, like the tension of how the combat is going, or like, you know, you're waiting on this one specific thing, and you're waiting, and you build these things up. And you know, some people, you know, play session after session after session over the course of years, and they're waiting for this culmination. And when it gets there, it's like, oh my god, you know, this is amazing. Other times, like you see, you know, streams online,
Why can't I do
and
that?
everyone is looking.
that
at
should even
die
have been
roll,
built
know
there.
What's gonna happen? And you know, some
Okay,
people
yeah, something's.
really get so caught
Oh, when I logged out.
so invested in it that like they get stressed out. It's like, oh my god, he's gonna live, he's gonna die, you know, because it can be done on just that one die roll. These kind of things happen.
The
There goes my
D&D stories
symmetry.
that
My
we
brilliant
develop
symmetry. I
and
wonder if I can work
create,
with that
in
somehow.
some ways, they start becoming more important than things in real life to us. And yeah, and from another angle of, you know, not only do you get to connect with people you just met because you're gaming with them, but people you're not gaming with, people you run into and you realize they're into gaming, and you're like, oh, you D&D? Yeah, I D&D. We all D&D. And next thing you know, you're just swapping stories about your characters, and things that happen in your games, and your dungeon masters, and NPCs you love, and magical items you found, and monsters you fought, and all of a sudden you've got this deep connection with a stranger, you know. So it brings people, these stories bring people together that even know each other. And even though we maybe didn't share these stories together at the same table, like we're all D&D players, and we can all connect.
There's a camaraderie, and there's an understanding. You know, 9 times out of 10 when we go places, whether it be at a conventions or you just meet someone locally, you know, they're ready to just sit there and tell you what's going on in their current game, or they're ready to tell you about their favorite character. It's there in the back of their mind, the forefront of their brain is like, oh my god, you understand this. This is a passion of mine. I need to share it with you. And like, there's a joy that just isn't typically expressed with other things. Like, I don't see the same passion in other hobbies. You know, I mean, it might be out there, you know, maybe because I don't express the same things for sports that others do, but I just don't see that same level, you know, in other things.
We just look at them, there's something over there. I don't know what it is. Sports ball. We're talking about sports ball.
So like,
don't make eye contact.
So like, you know, I can look back over the many years, and as I've said before, we've shared, you know, many different stories. So like, we're not going to repeat any of those. You know,
One thing I can put in
way
all these
back
foundation
machine,
things.
you know, I had a Warforged, you know, character, and in that, you know, 3rd edition, there were these Warforged components, and I not only was interested in having all of them, but I wanted to make my own as well. And I came up with this massive list. There was no way, unless we played this mega game, that, you know, went to 20th level, maybe beyond, that the DM would have allowed me to get all of these things. But I'm like, I want extra arms, I want a tail, I want wings, I want these other things. And it was crazy stuff that I was looking into. And you know, he started having, or he wanted to make this place, since Warforged in 3rd edition didn't sleep. He was all about like, well, can I make some place that Warforged can go at night? You know, that they can just
maybe a place they can call their own.
Indeed. So like, you know,
where everyone knows their name.
I don't know about all that. So this was Gears, and I just
you know what Gears rhymes with, don't you?
Beers?
No, cheers.
Cheers.
I'm Alistair Humphreys, and I've never been to Nova Scotia. And boom, Nova Scotia.
Don't you?
Beers?
No, cheers.
Cheers.
I'm sorry.
Same along the same lines.
I couldn't help it. But that was the cool thing about that character too, Ted, was the fact that you took him and you not only like you had this weird stuff you wanted to do, but you also wanted to create, you know, a church and religion and spirituality for this constructed race that didn't really have, you know, like deities of their own.
Yeah, and I just thought it was a great way to not only, you know, love this character, but to have him impact the world that he lived in. And, you know, who knows, had that campaign gone on for a serious, you know, full-fledged 20 levels, like this character would have made so many changes to the Warforged in that Eberron game that, like, this would have been a major...
Or got murdered by the Lord of Blades, one or the other.
Well, I mean, I don't think he would have gotten murdered. Like, he might have been, you know, convinced to join them, because that's the other place that Warforged could go.
It's true.
You know, or he could have been a spy for the Lord of Blades. Like, there could have been so many different directions that could have gone.
Yeah, I thought Gears was a little more goodly though. Lord of Blades, not so much.
Yeah,
he's only goodly towards Warforged.
But he was Warforged, so I doubt he would have gotten murdered. But, you know, however, so one great thing, you know, when there's rules for creating things, and I know 5th edition has not gone down that road in any way, shape, or form, but it pretty much is like, yeah, do what you want in your own game. At the onset of 3rd edition, when this was happening, I'm like, I'm all about that. So I made Zarsocks, and in-game...
Yeah, it took me forever just to get the models in there, but now that it's like working.
He was a cleric
like
sorcerer.
Really cool.
All about magic and magic items. And if you've ever seen those little like party lights and the things, and it's like, oh, you walk by and it you know, makes sound and lights up. This is what this guy decided to make. So in Dave's basement, which is where we gamed at this point in time, he had one of these little crystal ball like things with a little light sensor on it. And every time you walked by, it would crackle with lightning and make the sound of thunder.
Yeah, when this is like static electric balls, and you can also touch it or do stuff.
Right.
So, yeah.
Well, I had, you know, craft wondrous item, and this guy, that was the first thing he made. So I took it off the gaming shelf, and I would keep it at the table. And it did not take long before, like, every session I'd be playing with it, totally in character, because that's what I'd be doing, and someone would come and just grab it out of my hands, put it back on the shelf, and say, "No, Ted, don't touch."
You're done, Ted. You're done. That's enough.
But, like, it totally was what the character would do, and he would fiddle with magic, because it's like, well, this is something that I made. So, like, I'm certain that he, you know, had all kinds of issues on the trail, getting annoyances with, you know, people in the party who just were so fed up with what this guy did. But, oh man, I would just take every magic item creation feat as we gain levels, and he was just a blast.
Feel free to suggest any ideas.
How can I make
What
a
should I try
new
to
annoying
build?
magic item that won't be useful at the table?
But I mean,
me.
he would make other stuff that totally was, but like that was like he wanted to live magic. It was something that was all encompassing in his life. Totally based him off of you know, Black Mage. You've got the, you know, the hood up and the pointy hat on. So everything magic-y was what this guy was about.
You know, I feel like over the years with our group, I've only had like 2 characters I played for any length of time. You know, with most of my time being as the DM, you know, I played my gnome illusionist, who later got involved with Shadowmancy, but then he was murdered and it didn't matter anyway. Like with that deal with Steve, he allowed him to stick around long enough for me to just really dig on him. Actually, there's a third character.
Did he die at the end?
Oh, he absolutely died early. Yeah, I had to come back and start a new character.
Oh, okay.
Then my Chaos Dwarf, he was a lot of fun. He was a cleric of Chaos, and he eventually willed Chaos Dwarves into existence through adamantly just professing that they did exist, and there were more of them out there.
Well, I mean, you had Core, but we've talked about him a couple of times.
Yeah, and then Core is the other one. So like those are the 3 characters that I played for any length of time. You know, for a decent amount of sessions, I would say. And then Core was my first 3rd edition character.
And in Ryan's game.
Yeah, in Ryan's game. And the thing that was cool about him was like really getting to explore 3rd edition for the first time and develop a fighter with a fighting style and all about using like spring attack and reach weapons and mobility on the battlefield.
So the great part about that character was that he was a fighter that wasn't on the front lines.
He was, but then left. He was, and he left.
Yeah. So that allowed my character to pretty much just sit there and eat the damage, but it didn't matter to him as a barbarian druid, not a big deal.
Yeah, so I mean, so those were a lot of fun. Like with that character, he was a quarter orc. He was just human, but I played him as being having some orc blood in there. Had him look a little bit different,
slightly off-color skin, and he still had the tusks.
Yeah, little tiny tusks. I mean, orcs would laugh at him, and the yellow eyes.
Yeah, I forgot about the yellow eyes.
Yeah, but so that was a lot of fun. That was a lot of fun, and like you're always gonna think of those characters fondly. And before the group, though, I had Derek Woodstalker, and that was from my teens, and he was a wood elf fighter. So I've always been kind of fond of druids. From a wee lad.
I made the color and the position of the light itself change and a random, like 75% chance to go forward or backwards on a timeline. So that's why I like flickers like real fire, because I have stared at a lot of fire in my life.
Oh well, I'm gonna get
a lot of flames. See, that's fully Mojo House.
Kind of weird.
See if I
he
can
was a rogue
do
wizard, and he was all about dungeon delving.
Some of these cool things.
So like his magic was used.
What are these? None.
He was ready to go in. And
I think I just added a bunch of other things. I have to take them out of the list.
I didn't play him as
empty
long
slots.
as I
I
would have liked, but
did finish before
I think he really was built as like the perfect dungeon delver, and I would have liked to have played him a lot longer than I did.
That kind of makes me think of the dwarves that me and Steve played that did not see quite enough, but they were kind of obnoxious together.
Was that single session that we played?
Yeah, that would have been. They were just a bad combination for any GM, I think. But then from the GM side, we have a bunch of stories. But
before we get to that, I think we're gonna get into a little promo here.
Yeah, so this video is sponsored by our Dungeon Master Goblin, who has his own stories to tell and tell over and over again. You can find.
Let me see what else I can find here. D&D stories. Ooh. Oh, let's go to this guy.
A long time ago.
Nope. Yeah, okay. D&D stories number 57. Four years ago. That's the oldest one. D&D stories number 50, number 32. No, but I have to see the oldest. Number 32. D&D stories, season 1. Oh, how to craft a D&D campaign. That's well, I'll do these stories first.
What's your name? Elena Ramirez. Do you have any allergies? No. Any dentures, loose or false teeth?
My name is Tony. I am the modern-day bard. I enjoy tabletop games. Pathfinder, D&D, Harp, I've played them all. And anyone who's ever played any of these role-playing games always comes away with a handful of remember the time when. These are my D&D stories. Hello and welcome to D&D Stories. I am your host, T the Writer, and this is the show where I sit here and regale you with all the times of tabletop games do you remember when. Whenever you get together with a group of friends, whenever you get into a club or something that has to do with D&D, Pathfinder, HARP, everybody always walks away with a bunch of stories of that amazing critical that you made, or that super epic fail that sent your character careening towards death, or the time you slayed a god, or the time you slayed the dragon, etc., etc. And I have quite a few of those stories, so here I am. It's just gonna be me talking, so you don't actually have to watch this video. So if you enjoy Minecraft, World of Warcraft, if you've got dishes to do, minimize me. All you've got to do is listen to the sultry sound of my voice. Gosh, I guess we should start from the very beginning, as far back as I can remember, with Spoony the Bard. Yes, he is named after the Spoony Bard from Final Fantasy. He is named after Noah Antwiler's Spoony, who was technically named Tandem. So if you've seen the Spoony experiment, it's named after him also. Call me a fanboy, whatever. But yes, I was about halfway through college in a group called the Gamers Guild, which was a group of about 60 plus people that would get together and play tabletop games. We had a big room and a bunch of little side rooms where you could get 6, 8, 10 people together around these big conference tables. All we had to do was rent it out every week, and we had a constitution of rules to follow. We had room reservations, the whole thing, the whole 9 yards up on campus. So we had nice accommodations and people that had been there for years. There were a bunch of people playing Magic the Gathering, D&D, Pathfinder, HARP, God forbid HARP. There were stacks and stacks of board games everywhere, but mostly me and my little tight-knit group of friends were in one of the side rooms playing D&D 3.5, and this story is all about the one of the first campaigns that we played together called Wicked Master. Now, Wicked Master, if I recall correctly, I've got this little cue card because this was 8 years ago for me, so you'll pardon my memory. I think there were 6 players. It was Spoony the Bard, that was me, a monk whose name was Rhino, Dylan the Paladin, a wizard that I can't remember, a utility sorcerer.
I don't know. Let me try this season 3. Maybe it got really good.
Do I want to save money?
Ocean Rim, the jewel of the East Coast. The crossroads of trade and the home of 500,000 souls of all walks of life. Scoundrels, scholars, royalty and the religious. Its defensive walls have helped it stand for almost 1,000 years, and its booming trade in every imaginable market has helped it thrive. It is said that long ago, the city was put to the ultimate test of survival. Over 700 years ago, a great calamity drove an entire district of the city into the sea. A hand being cut off to save the body. Tens of thousands died. But now, there are none that remain that remember the nature of that disaster.
I see how this works now. I'm gonna have to rework
nor
that a bit.
whom it was that saved those that remain. Ocean
Let me
Rim
get snapped to
completed,
that center beam there.
thrived, and moved on, with none remaining who remember the story.
Well, that might work.
Save for one bard.
Here we go. I need to put snap
Hello
points on
and
that crossbeam thing
welcome
there.
to another D&D Stories.
For now, I can just
I'm your
kinda
host,
cheat
T
it.
the Writer, and this is the show where I sit here and regale you with all the tabletop gaming stories and remember when something cool happened. So today we will begin upon probably the biggest campaign I ever did throw, Ocean Rim. Now, Ocean Rim to me was, gosh, I guess sort of like an Avengers Assemble sort of situation. I wanted to pluck players one by one and let them have their own adventures, and then near the end come together as like a climactic super party to come together and try and save the world, or whatever the occasion called for. So I threw a bunch of contests, I went through a bunch of entries, I picked a bunch of people, and Ocean Rim is what spun out. So join me as this, gosh, I guess 1.5, 2 year long campaign sprawls out over the show, because it starts small and it just keeps getting bigger and keeps getting bigger until it just blows up. So we begin with a rather humble character, a brand new player who decided to make a rogue named Mattias the Prowler, and we're playing D&D 3.5 at the time. So if you're going to run around by yourself, rogue is probably near the top of your list, because they get all the skill points and they get a lot of survivability when they're by themselves. And you might say, oh, well, you know, any class is relatively good when it's by itself, except for first level wizards who always die. But rogue is near the top of the list because they can do pretty much anything they want, and they're pretty darn OP in the first couple of levels, just from their skill point allotment. I think the average D&D 3.5 rogue gets like 40 skill points to start with. They can do a lot of different things depending on what kind of rogue they want to be. The face rogue, the duelist, the feinter, the acrobatic, the dungeon rogue. They can fit almost any role in the party depending on what they want to do with their skill points. So I'm introducing this guy to D&D, and he asked me, and I tell him, hey, you know, play a rogue. They've got really good survivability when they're by themselves, and you can stealth, and you get backstab, and you get all the skill points, and it's the best idea for a relatively new player who didn't understand the magic system, who didn't understand like D&D in general. And I wanted to show him how fun it could be without like throwing him into a group of veterans, so he could kind of explore and see what kind of stuff you could do with the game. And Mattias the Prowler was a half-elf rogue who was making his way to the city of Ocean Rim. Now, we join our hero, I guess you could call him that. He was, I think, chaotic neutral. Is like, he was a highwayman, you know, he would steal from people and stuff like that, so he was not good and he was not lawful, so he put himself down as chaotic neutral. And we join our hero on a horse and cart with a farmer who is taking him across the fields, because he doesn't have a horse of his own, to the magnificent city of Ocean Rim, away from a town called Pleasant Grove. Now, Mattias, being a level 1 rogue, has a slight reputation in the region as a thief, as a rogue, as a highwayman. You know, many a young maid lost her baubles to his trade, and many a soldier shed his lifeblood on his blade. So he got to be a little too well known and decided he needed to skip town. And from outside the region, he arrived in Pleasant Grove, hitched a ride, and he's going all the way to Ocean Rim, because it's very easy to hide in a large city where there are 500,000 people milling around. All you've got to do is, you know, change your name and you get a new lease on life. So Mattias is a very simple character, and we kind of built him that way, but after a while the player kind of took over to give him his own personality, his own lot in life. And I came to find out pretty quickly that Mattias was a 3 Bs character. And what are the 3 Bs? The 3 Bs are when...
Yeah, this guy is not doing it for me. The other story time was way better. Oh, this is a different dude. Let me go to his videos.
Nostalgia. I think it's a key component to D&D. For many of us who discovered the hobby as youngsters, D&D, or really tabletop, is a warm feeling. It's chips and soda, laughing with your friends in a dusty attic, rolling dice on a thick carpet. Even people who weren't around for the beginning feel a kind of cultural nostalgia. D&D conjures up images of Gygax, DM screens, crazy braces, and order by nail polyhedrons. Shared memories of places or times we didn't even experience. Welcome to the 11th episode of the Animated Spellbook, brought to you by thedeckofmany.com. Shared memories. One of the most magical things about D&D is something revealed when a player tells a story. They often use the word we. They'll say things like, when we got to the fortress, the orcs were waiting for us. Even if they start the story saying my character did this, our characters did that, often we will pop up in the story. It reveals something, I think, about the true joy of the game. When you reminisce about the good old days and your favorite games, I doubt you remember the events as they happened at the table. You remember your friends at the table, yes, but that's almost separate, that's underneath. What you remember is being a gnome barbarian. You remember dodging that dart that hit the wizard, and your friend remembers being the wizard that got nailed by the dart, somewhere nestled in a warm blanket of cheese curls and nostalgia. We created shared memories of dusty labyrinths, strange taverns, of an entire world filled with larger-than-life adventures, not as stat blocks, not as people around a table, but as visions. And when the dice bags are filled and the screen goes down, a new stage of play begins. We play every time we examine past games or imagine future adventures. The true joy of the game is at the table, yes, but it can also be in reminiscing about a place where we were heroes. A secret place that only you and your friends can remember. I'd argue that as you watch this, you're playing that part of the game right now. Thanks for watching this episode of the Animated Spellbook, sponsored by thedeckofmany.com. They're making cards to help DMs and players alike keep the game moving with conditions, monsters, and more for 5th edition D&D. Website in the description. I'll see you in the next Animated Spellbook. Unless you're a patron, then I'll see you in the next Animated Cake. Welcome to the 10th episode of the Animated Spellbook, Build Murray, brought to you by thedeckofmany.com. This is one of my all-time favorite loose character types, and it even works with relatively low ability scores. Disclaimer, this is in no way an optimal build. It's not even a build, really. This is more of a concept where we play with some of the more abstract mechanics of D&D to create a character who has pretty much no business adventuring, but is so darn lucky that they blindly JK roll through every challenge. First, race. Any halfling will do. Their ability score improvements are kind of irrelevant. What we really want is their lucky feature. Basically, you get to re-roll ones from ability checks, attack rolls, or saving throws, but then you have to keep the reroll. I usually go stout halfling since they have advantage on saving throws versus poison, mainly because it has a dice effect, and this is all about dice and it's funny, so whatever. Okay, now we get to the meat. Take the wizard class and survive to at least level 2, where you can choose your school of magic. Pick divination. This will give you other features, but the main one might be the most important one, if you know what I'm saying. When you finish a long rest, roll 2 d20s and record those foretelling numbers. You can replace any attack roll, saving throw, or ability check with your foretelling numbers. You can use each foretelling number once, and when you finish a long rest, unused foretelling numbers are lost. Here's the trick. You can do it to anybody you can see, or yourself. Finally, try and survive to level 4, where you can pick up the Lucky feat. You are now the Dice Master. Lucky gives you 3 points every long rest. You can spend them to re-roll ability checks, attacks, or saving throws, and if anybody attacks you, you can force them to re-roll. Both Lucky and Portent are used after the dice are rolled, but before the outcome is determined. You are now officially the luckiest halfling in favor. You get 5 re-rolls a day, 2 of which you know the outcome of in advance. Once they're all spent, you still only have like a 0.25% chance of rolling a nat 1 and keeping. So go out, my Murrays, and conquer the world, one unlikely fumble at a time. Thanks for watching this episode of the Animated Spellbook, sponsored by thedeckofmany.com. They're making cards to help DMs and players alike keep the game moving with conditions, monsters, and more for 5th edition D&D. Website in the description. I'll see you in the next Animated Spellbook. Unless you're a patron, then I'll see you in the next Animated Cake. The players had escaped the prison walls. With Gregor churning and 17 mounted guards hot on their tail, they needed to make a plan fast. The team leapt into an unmanned supply sled, and after 25 years in prison, they were finally free. Well, kinda. They were gaining momentum in the dark, and it seemed prudent to toss the supply crates to lighten the load and thwart their pursuers at the same time. They saw the canyon too late. You probably think you know what this episode's going to be about, and so did the players, which is why they dished all the crates on their supply sled. I and co-DM Elliot had different plans. 2 days, one waterfall and a blizzard later, cold, wet, and on the verge of starvation, with no blankets or real weapons, the party began the real journey. An often underrepresented type of D&D, survival. They were still being chased by Gregor. Every hunt or rest they took brought them closer to being arrested or killed. The ranger started obsessing over trying to find a sprig of mistletoe. So, of course, he eventually found some mistletoe and cast the worst spell. Hello and welcome to episode 9 of the animated spellbook, Good Berry, sponsored by thedeckofmany.com. You can create up to 10 berries in your hand. Any creature who uses their action to eat a berry has 1 HP restored, and it provides enough nourishment to sustain a creature for a day. Alright, so enough food and water for 10 people for the cost of 1 spell slot. Said sustenance is enough to rest easily and get those spell slots back. So, survival solved. Yeah, I know there's cold weather DCs and stuff like that, but it's not as interesting as hunting and exploring, getting into hijinks, trying to survive. To the DMs out there, I'm going to propose a tiny table rule. Goodberry consumes its material component. Consumed material components can't be replaced by a focus, so that means there's a set number of good berries according to how many sprigs of mistletoe the character is carrying. You don't have to do this, but we did, and to great effect. What followed was a crazy adventure where the players explored, foraged, made their own clothes, and earned every inch. It became an adventure of legend. My favorite that I ever had the privilege to co-run, and it's because one tiny tweak can bring the wilderness to life. Thanks for watching the animated spellbook, sponsored by thedeckofmany.com. They're making cards to help DMs and players alike keep the game moving with conditions, monsters, and more for 5th edition D&D. Website in the description. I'll see you in the next animated spellbook. Unless you're a patron, then I'll see you in the next animated cake.
I'm playing around with the modular building. I added all the different wall types. It saves the color.
The players were tasked with planting a Duggar's Tome and Sweet Tooth's Potionary, at best doing so without being seen, at worst making it look like a robbery. But it went down as most D&D heists go, poorly. They basically weaponized the treasure chest they'd hoped to take for themselves, cutting their profit margin down by at least half. And all 5 players had trapped themselves on a roof 5 stories tall. They didn't have time to set up ropes. The guards hadn't seen the players' faces yet, but were about 1 turn away from bursting through the roof door and pincushioning the players with arrows. There was a shindig in the open and public section of the building down on the 2nd story balcony. What's more, the players had managed to start a street fight between 2 NPCs about 10 minutes before the heist. The revelers on the balcony were caught up, cheering and taking bets. The sorcerer looked back, looked down, and saw the gap on the balcony. He asked his teammates to jump. Knowing he always had a plan, they did so without hesitation. Are you ahead of me yet? Hello and welcome to the first episode of the 2nd season of the animated spellbook. Today, let's talk about another Elliot exploit and another great first level spell. Featherfall. Choose up to 5 falling creatures within range. A falling creature's rate of descent slows to 60 feet per round until the spell effect ends. And, if they land before the spell effect ends, within 1 minute/10 rounds, they can land on their feet and take no falling damage. The 5 of them glided down to the balcony unseen. They got advantage for the street fight and the clever play, and mingled with the potionary hipsters. Then, one by one, they drifted out onto the streets of Waterdeep, unscathed, if a little poorer than they hoped. Featherfall is one of those spells that only sees play in games with a lot of vertical maps. I've seen wizards dive after their friends, and on occasion I've even used Featherfall to save someone from something crazy, like being thrown by a giant Skyrim style. In a really, really loose interpretation of the rules, I even once saw Jim Darkmagic use it to help Binwin Hulk leap up an icy cliff in Stormwind's Thunder. Alright, well, that's Featherfall. It's a cool spell for rad wizards, sorcerers, and bards. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next episode of the animated spellbook. If you want to see more neato-z content, take a look at my Patreon vid, link in the description. There at the center of a field, starkly lit by the low sun, stood a rickety 30 by 30 foot wooden tower. It had no doors and 8 slits evenly spaced around the 3rd story. They hesitated. They'd seen some signs of kobolds on their way here. and when the rogue inspected the tower, he had to shift his head to avoid the glare. That's when he noticed the shadow of the tower reached all the way to the edge of the field. Oh, perfect, he thought, and used the shadow for cover as he snuck towards the tower. Puzzle failed. Kobolds are light sensitive. 6 kobolds split move to the slit, each taking a shot and darting back into full cover. The rogue has good AC, but, 6 bolts, he nearly drops in the first turn. The design of Rickety Tower is truly sinister. 6 attacks per turn, the only way to hit the kobold's back is to use a reaction, and even then they're in half cover. So, what do? I know what my fucking sorcerer did. He essentially ended the fight in 2 turns. Hello and welcome. Last time we went over a cantrip, so today let's talk about one of my favorite first level spells on the last episode of Season 1 of the animated spellbook. Let's talk about sleep. The sorcerer knew it was the right play because the kobolds have low HP, were huddled close together, and just out of sight. He targeted a point in space from which the spell's 20-foot AoE would blossom. He rolled 5d8, the total amount of HP's worth of creatures that this spell would affect. It doesn't do any damage, but starting from the lowest HP creature working upward, subtract their HP from the roll. Then move on to the next until what's left of the roll is less than the creature being affected's HP. In this case, kobolds have 5 HP each, so he rolled a 28 and put 5 out of the 6 kobolds out in an instant. The remaining kobold, a coward by nature, left his friends to die. There's no save, a lot of creatures are immune to it, but goddamn sleep is a good spell. Holy shit, this series is doing way better than I ever imagined. You can check out my Patreon video, link in the description. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next episode of the Animated Spellbook. Today I wanted to give you first-time casters out there a little tip and go over one of the most beloved spells in D&D. Welcome to the 6th episode of the Animated Spellbook and the first single spell episode, Prestidigitation. Generally, Prestidigitation is thought of as a kind of practice spell for new spellcasters. With it, you can create silly little effects that usually have no in-game numeric implications, but are really helpful story-wise. Prestidigitation has a ton of effects. A caster can create an instantaneous sensory effect, sparks, a little wind, faint music, make something smell nice, make it smell bad, whatever you can kind of think of as long as it's harmless. It can be used to create or snuff out small fires meant for campfires and candles, etc., but the number of lives consumed by this effect is probably astronomical. It can instantaneously clean or soil an object up to 1 square foot. It can temporarily make a mark or a symbol appear on an object's surface for 1 hour. Now, notice they didn't specify the size here. That's interesting. And finally, a caster can create a non-magical trinket or an illusory image that could fit into their hand and last until the end of their turn. Again, notice how they don't say where the trinket is, just that it can fit into their hand. You can have up to 3 of its non-instantaneous effects active at one time and dismiss such an effect as an action. This is pretty much the description in the spellbook, but what it doesn't really cover is the beauty of the spell. Now, I know that most of you have already heard of this spell, but for the new spellcaster, guess what? There's a spell in D&D that's basically be creative, and hopefully your DM will be cool with it. Thanks for watching, and thanks for being patient as new apps come out. I'm having a great time making these. The reception of the last episode blew my mind, and I'm so excited every time I upload a new app. Also, if you want a little more magic in your life, I do have a Patreon. Check out that vid, and if it sounds cool, links are in the description. See you in the next episode of the Animated Spellbook. Hello and welcome. For the first time, it's going to be a PHP Lite episode of the Animated Spellbook. Today, I'm going to talk about something I suspect won't win me any viewers, but it's honestly just what I want to talk about this week. Weaknesses can be more interesting than strengths. It's fun to watch an insanely strong fighter crush skulls and kick balls. But I'd argue it's more interesting to watch their abysmal charisma score at work as they struggle through a conversation with the High Overseer Baboosh. This is all a matter of opinion, but to me, tabletop games are about shared storytelling, building tension, and then releasing it. And even though they can be all about PCs are super cool and good at everything, the spark of chaos is the spice that we need to turn a slog into a whitewater rapid chase. And ultimately, the flawed character provides that spark. And just as often as one character's weakness can be a problem, it can be a platform on which another character can take the stage. So when you roll up a stat array that's absolute horseshit, you could get super pissed. Or you could get pumped, and here's why. Firstly, and kind of secretly, your terrible character has a built-in death wish. This is super freeing. Suddenly, instead of constantly needing a metagame to keep your precious jewel alive, There are 3 outcomes which I've seen kind of a pattern in, and they're all pretty great. You can lean into the RP, swing for the fences with your role-playing, charm the party to pieces, and then die a glorious death. Hardcore mode, you survive one nail-biting episode to the next. Your weakness is reinforcing the party's strength and grounding the adventure's twists and turns. And finally, you pull a full Bill Murray and you bumble your way to glory. So, the next time you roll a 5 on an ability score, don't fret. Maybe try leaning into it. It can be a lot more fun than you might think. Hello, and welcome to episode 4 of the Animated Spellbook. Today we're going to talk about casting time, so first let's briefly go over rounds and turns. Each round of combat is 6 seconds long. A round is how long it takes for every person in combat to have a turn. Each turn consists of a move, an action, and a bonus action. Once per round, between the start of your turn and the start of your next turn, you also get 1 reaction. Okay, so casting time. If the casting time is listed in second...
I'm gonna ask the squirrels to come here, and hopefully they're gonna bring a nut with them. And it's gonna be everybody's responsibility to grab their own squirrel and get their own nut.
You pick one, you grab a squirrel and pick it up. Yeah. It looks at you, and then puts a hand over its chest and bows.
Oh. And then I go like this, and then hold out my other hand like... Cough up.
He looks at you,
bring cash,
and he puts his little paw just on the tip of your finger.
And then I go.
Squat flat with floors, then place the roof. Yeah.
Squirrel.
How do you get a nut?
I'm just hoping I can.
In the manner of those, those trash.
I think I can just do this again. I just deleted it.
Just stabbed through 3 of them.
Oh my god!
Maybe like a floor.
Nope.
I'm not sure.
Welcome, my monstrous humanoids, to episode 3 of the Animated Spellbook. Today, let's talk about something relatively simple, which is made confusing by its name: spell levels. In D&D 5e, spells are arranged into levels according to how powerful... Welcome to episode 2 of the Animated Spellbook. Today we're going to go over something all casters can use. What's the difference between spell attacks and spell saves? First, important numbers. The Animated Spellbook series, episode 1. This is a series all about spells in D&D 5e from all the classes. We'll go over uses, effects, and edge cases, but before we do any of that, let's go over our namesake, the Spellbook. And by extension, wizards. What you need to know about wizards.
You know what? I know what to do here.
Spellbooks, prepared spells, and spell slots are all different, and all 3 are needed to cast any spell. What's a spellbook?
Right here.
Spellbooks are basically notebooks which wizards keep all the complicated stuff about their spells in. What are they used for? Simply put, spells are super difficult and complex. Like for wizards, they are super complicated in order to actually cast. There are specific gestures, specific incantations, and most of them even have components, i.e. ingredients. A wizard has to have all of those little details prepared to cast a spell. Preparing spells. After your wizard's finally gotten some shut-eye, when they wake up, it's time to prepare spells. Wizards have a different number of spells that they can memorize after a long rest, based on their level and their intelligence. How many spells can I prepare? You can prepare, this used to be called memorize, your level plus your intelligence modifiers worth of spells. Of any level. They just have to be in your spellbook, and they stay prepared until you memorize new spells. How many times can I cast them spells? The answer depends on how many spell slots you have. Any prepared spell can be cast by burning a spell slot of its level or higher. Think of spell slots as fuel and spells as rockets. How many spell slots do I have? This many. Finally, book learning. A first level wizard knows 3 cantrips and 6 first level spells of your choice. You automatically gain 2 spells each time you level. Each of these spells must be of a level for which you have spell slots, and also between levels you can learn any spells you find in spellbooks or scrolls on your adventures. These found spells need to be copied into your own spell book, costing 50 gold and 2 hours per level. When you find a spell, you can copy it down regardless of whether you have spell slots for it. Every spell requires space in your book, 1 page per spell level. Okay, that's it. So thanks for watching, and if you want more of these, please share them with a struggling wizard near you.
Yeah.
Okay, so I'm actually going to, I'd like to jump onto an unoccupied by tentacles part of Croconaut and use Gramomancy to use the shadows of all of these tentacles and drag them off of Croconaut and preferably back to the darkness from whence they came.
Exactly. Now, how will you contend with your cooking duties?
Oh, so this would be my whole turn?
How do we...
Just leave me.
Yeah, I love that. Underhand.
Leave me. It's more important for you to cook.
I'm just a floater. Honestly, no one else can cook.
Okay.
Just let me die. Okay.
Alright, take care, man.
Okay.
I'm gonna eat soon and I'll probably be on Fortnite a bit.
Welcome everybody to the stream. I'm Z. Well, you know that. There's no way that you would be at the beginning of the stream if you didn't know who I was. Thanks for dropping in. I've got a short period of time today again. This is going to be the last stream for December because I'm about to move to South Africa tomorrow. We'll be back in January. I'm just getting everything set up, so there's a little bit of move chaos and holiday chaos. So I'll see you guys after that. And today we're going to be doing some time drawings like we did last week because that was a lot of fun. And we're going to do standard rules.
more or less prefab with custom floors on the right here. Weird slanty thing. And oh, there we go. So 6 by 6. No. There we go. Take care, folks. What do you want to see real quick? Let's hop back in and just make sure it all loaded right. Everything, all the torches and lamps should be on if they were on, off if they were off. Even better. It's 2. See her in the window there? It's kind of creepy. Alright, there we go. Take care, folks. Good one.